All right, everybody, do it with me. Welcome to Vibe Rant, Leo Herbs, AstroHerbalism edition. I couldn't have said it more correctly myself, as Family Fun Guy exclaims. Very excited to be with y'all on this one. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for hitting like on your way in, sharing the stream with people that you know like plants and like astrology and like fun, especially fun. And already a nice little super chat from Jason Reed over on the Rockman side. Thank you for the support. And here we are, ready to show off the fun part of the Zodiac, the king of the Zodiac. It's going to be Liddy Kitty, as the kids say. I don't know if the kids still say that. A few years ago, I heard kids say that. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting up there, but welcome, everybody. I feel like it's been a while since I've seen you all, except Gabe, and that might be because we are a week later than a month since the last one, so the excitement has really been building up. So welcome. I'll just kick it over to Michelle and Mario. How have you guys been?
What's up, everybody? We're doing good over here. Things are rolling in nicely in the late days of summer. So, yep.
Yeah, all is well over here. It's nice to see you guys. Leo is a fun sign to talk about. The strength card is very interesting. Curious to hear you guys' comments about everything.
Right on. And what's up, Kyle? Thank you for honoring the dress code.
Yo, what's up? Hey, congratulations, Mr. Chance. 100 episodes of the Vibe Rant. Dude, I'm honored to be here. It's nice to be in this little pride of lions we got here, and I'm really happy to be a contributor to this amazing show. 100 episodes. I go back very frequently, and I listen to some guests. I listen to some from a couple years ago, and there's just always good stuff on this show. I love the flow state, and I love the space you hold for these fun topics and all the ones that you have, man. So congratulations, and it's great to be here tonight, man. Just got
Thanks, dude. Coming from a legend like yourself, definitely an honor to know that you get something out of the content. I certainly do. I look forward to someday, like many years in the future, going back through this stuff, because one of the things I love about it is we're typically very timeless in our conversations. It's not really like current events heavy. But guys, as we're about to kick off talking about Leo as a symbol, as a sign, I think nothing else need be said other than if you want to know what Leo energy is like, just look at the box under me. This guy brings the fun, brings the enthusiasm, always keeps the ball rolling. Gabriel, we appreciate and honor you, my friend.
Thank you. I'm honored, and I'm so stoked to be here. It's been a little too long already. I love you guys so much. And I got some wonderful gifties in the mail. Kyle, you stud. I got a package for my birthday from Tippecanoe Herbs. And man, am I blessed, man. I'm so super blessed. I'm going to show off some of my goodies. I got this here book. There we go. The 7 Herbs, Plants as Teachers, by Matthew Wood. And Kyle, you say this was a teacher of yours, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Michelle too.
Oh, really? Oh, you guys both? Oh, that's so perfect. Yeah. So I'm super stoked on this. And I mean, the fact that it's 7 herbs kind of hits a super syncy note for me, because as we've talked about before, you know, I'm Leo for life, born and raised, but I'm coming to terms with that Cancer, you know, with that little bit of lag, that sign in the sidereal. Yeah. So I'm feeling the 7 a lot lately, and kind of you know, in my own way, in my own path, I'm almost reconciling the 7 to the 8, which is a huge numerically significant step. The 78 cards of the tarot, the 7 to the 8. Yeah, as we rise in the summer to the pinnacle. So yeah, thank you, brother. I'm looking forward to this. And then I should show off some of the other goodies. I got bay leaf hydrosol.
Yo, the hydrosols are a must. Gotta have some of those.
You've had this one, Chance?
I haven't had that one, but I actually just used the last drops of it. I'm gonna order some more like tonight. But I particularly like the rose hydrosol for before I go on the camera. It's like you spray your face with the essence of Venus, and you're just like, yeah, I got a glamour on.
Nice.
You know, it like gets rid of like the tired eyes, tightness, and like bagginess. It just sort of washes all that away in a very comforting mist. The lavender one's also really good if you get a little burned in the sun or like an actual burn, clear that right up. So the hydrosol's got to promote that.
Yeah,
Get
it's
you some.
a distillation of the bay leaf, and it takes all the aromatic oils and makes a colloidal suspension in the water, and it has that word sol in there. So there's a solar energy to the water as well, and especially with bay leaf as well. Yeah.
So good. I just love it. I absolutely love it. And then I've got Sunny Comfort here. This is hawthorn berry, lemon balm, bay leaf, mugwort, motherwort, linen, and lemon verbena extracted in alcohol, local honey. And then I also have Apollo's Radiance was gifted to me. Man, I feel so glamorous. I feel so glamorous. Thank you, brother. This one is nice. Should I put this in my beard? Because that's the first thing I did.
It's anoint whatever thy wish, I guess.
Yes. This is really good stuff too. So thank you so much. I'm blessed to be a part of this little crew. And also, Mario, inadvertently, man, you gave me a book tip. So I reached out and I grabbed the one you flashed on the screen the other night.
Very interesting, man.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of tidbits in here. So this was kind of my birthday gift to myself per your recommendation.
Neuronomicon.
Gotcha. Very cool, dude. I'm curious to talk about this sometime with you.
Yeah, there's some just flashing through. There's a lot going on, man.
yeah, absolutely.
And then the last thing I got, and I'll give you guys a book report someday, placenta methamphetamine. Here we go. I finally have the book in my hand. Dr. Feelgood, the story of Maxwell Jacobson, the guy who sold placenta meth to the JFK thing. It's all crazy.
Have fun with that. Well, since we were showing off the goodie bags from Slick, it's a good idea to just remind everybody that if they are interested in some of those medicinal treasures that Kyle and his family and his employees are producing, pop over to Tippecanoe Herbs, and I'll put a link in the live chat here. You can use the InnerVerse code as a coupon code, InnerVerse, 10% off, and you support the show while you're at it. And I'm definitely fiending to try some of those things, like a few that you got there. I've never used myself. The Apollo's Radiance, that sounds awesome. Anoint thyself. So yeah, guys, I recommend everything that Kyle has ever sent me. All really good stuff. Much appreciated, bro. Yeah, he's hydrosolid right now. I've been known to do it in the middle of the show. It's very refreshing. Okay, so I guess we'll start on talking Leo symbolism. And for that, I will go ahead and prepare the slides. But man, this is just definitely a fun energy. That's like the best descriptor of it. But it's fierce. It it doesn't necessarily apologize very well. Actually, you know what I think would be great? Jennifer clipped this from a guy named the Leo King, who is an astrologer dude. Pretty major YouTube micro celebrity, astrologer, DJ guy. Definitely embodies the whole fun Leo vibe. But we'll watch this brief clip, and this ought to give us the full understanding of what Leo is all about. So here we go.
You know what else? I just got to say one more thing. It's my time. It's Leo time. Okay? Give me my fucking time. Especially after the last 3.5 years. Us Leos got fucking rammed. And we fucking are still here. And we're still fucking cool as fuck. And those Leo risings, I'm not forgetting about you motherfuckers. Let us have our moment here. Okay?
Give me my time. We're cool. Yeah, so that's a good introduction to the subject. Anybody want to say a few words while I pull up the slides?
of
you're mute.
Leo.
There you go.
Showy. I have a showy bouquet for everybody to bring in some Leo energy. I couldn't hear the clip, by the way. I'm not sure if it was maybe.
Yeah,
on our
we only
end,
saw it for a second.
but
Did everyone
just
else hear it?
I heard it.
Oh, okay.
It could have been on our end for some reason. But just wanted to share some flowers with everybody. Nice showy show of Leo energy here.
Well, what do we have there?
We've got some calendula and we have goldenrod. We've got Queen Anne's lace in here. There is also some Dyer's chamomile and amaranth. So just wanted to bring everybody some flowers for Leo.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
My little technical difficulties finding my slides. You guys continue on.
There was a calendula on my birthday card also, Kyle. The little cards that you can plant.
Yeah.
There's seeds in the paper here.
Yep, exactly. So yeah,
Yeah,
instead of throwing it away, just throw it in the compost and see what comes up.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, calendula, which we covered back in Sagittarius, because it is a very fiery plant, and we were mentioning about the calendar aspect of it and everything like that too, which would also be applicable here for Leo too.
Right. So yeah, well, one thing that it's bound to come up will be the oil. You know, Leo in reverse is oil. And so that's and of course we're also talking about the cream of the crop, the pinnacle, the alpha. You know, those that shine the brightest. You know, that got to the end of the race. Because at this point, you know, we're coming up on the harvest season. It's like if you made it this far, you're going to be hot, sweaty, like really worked, and the resting is just on the horizon. So there's a lot of like, yeah, champion status for sure.
All right, so here we are. As has become our tradition, we're going to examine some of these classic images from various popular tarot decks depicting Leo in the Strength card, or as Crowley's deck put it, the Lust card, which I don't know if it's really the right place to get into the whole like number swap from 8 to 11, but to me that's a weird question. It's almost like a trick.
Well, is today the Lionsgate?
Yesterday was.
Okay. So we are kind of on the 8 Lionsgate kind of thing of the 8 and the 11.
So one of the classic depictions here in the middle is often associated, all three of these, honestly, with Sophia, the mother goddess of wisdom, and her son, the demiurge. But I think I'm going to let Mario take it away talking about some of this tarot symbolism, because that's definitely his wheelhouse.
Thanks, man. Yeah, you know, one of the interesting things that always kind of hits me first is the fact that when we talk about the lion, when we think about the lion, we all think about the king of the jungle, right? Yet in the two classic versions on the left, the Marseille and the Rider-Waite, what do you see? You see the lion being tamed. He's being submissive, right? He doesn't look like he is fighting back at all. And his tail is actually between his legs. And so this is a really interesting thing that I've noticed in the tarot are these inversions, meaningful inversions, right? And so you would think that you would want to have a proud, big, you know, powerful lion. And here you see that this woman is taming the lion. And when I think of this woman, especially in the Rider-Waite version, I think they're implying that she actually is emblematic of Virgo. So just like what you said, Sophia and the demiurge, I see this image as a mother-child sort of portrait. And so I think that the woman, in particular in the middle, she's symbolic of Virgo, which is right after Leo. So the relationship between Virgo and Leo, I see mother and child, or mother and son, right? So Leo is ruled by the sun. So he is symbolically the sun, S-O-N and S-U-N, right? There's something to be said about Cancer also being related to the mother as well, and Leo being the son. So on both sides of Leo, it's really interesting. You have this feminine sort of quality. Also, just because I brought it up, but Cancer and Leo right next to each other, right? It's really interesting. Cancer is ruled by the moon, the only sign ruled by the moon. Leo is the only sign ruled by the sun. And you see there that she has this infinity sign just above her head, right? And even in the Marseille, you kind of get a little bit of that symbol within her hat as well. And so to me, this is interesting because this is the 8th card, depending on the deck, right? And the 8, to me, the infinity symbol, very much lines it up, to me, with Mercury. I think of Mercury's run and return, if you will, between realms, between worlds, being the psychopomp, being the messenger of the gods. And so I think this kind of further solidifies the fact that she actually is related to Virgo, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And so the lion, in and of itself, symbolically, I mean, so many different religions and cultures have their own take on the lion. I think Krishna was referred to as a wild lion. That you have the Lion of Judah, Christ, right? Even I was just reading that Muhammad's son-in-law is known as the Lion of Allah. And so so many different groups have their sort of correspondence with the lion. Even in Judaism, the Jews have been compared to a lion-like sort of energy or lion-like quality, right? So those are a few of the things that kind of, come to mind immediately. Generally, the card is kind of like taming. It's symbolically representing taming your inner beast. A lot of times people, just like Crowley's version implies lust, right? There's a sexual energy that could be kind of inferred here. Notice that even where the head of the lion is, it's closer to, her midsection there. And so you can say symbolically, this could relate to, her feminine sort of nature. And she's wearing white, right? Implying purity and things like that. Crowley definitely, he basically borrowed the symbolism of the Beast of Revelation, right? I believe it's 7 heads that this beast has. And you see this woman riding this lion. And then even it's kind of interesting. You see that the tail there, it's like a serpentine lion. This is really interesting because I've made videos about the relationship between the serpent, the lion, and the dragon. And even the Hebrew letter that gets associated with this card is Tet or Teth, which literally means serpent, or also vessel as well, like a womb, like a container. And so it means both of these things. And when you look at the letter itself, you can kind of see how that makes sense. So the woman who rides the beast, the whore of Babylon, she's generally holding a chalice of filth full of abominations, right? And so that's what she has there in her right hand. And then you see the that point in the middle up top. It's surrounded by, I believe it's like 10 different horns. So those are a few of the things that come to mind immediately. I think of the lion and its power and its pride being its both its blessing and its curse. Right. So the demiurge, right? The demiurge was known as being blind and ignorant and kind of tyrannical. And he thought he was the ultimate supreme deity, but he was failing to realize that there's actually a god above him, which is actually his mother, Sophia, the feminine. And so courage and pride, basically, if it's too much, if that's too present, if that's too potent, if that goes unchecked, obviously it can lead to, some not so great things. But yeah, that's what I have at the moment. I actually, the last thing, I do have notes here, but the last thing I'll say is regarding Virgo and Leo, some people have made the case that the Sphinx, the famous Sphinx in ancient Egypt, that it's actually a hybrid between Virgo and Leo, that the upper half would be Virgo, the lower half would be Leo, and that this was actually the beginning and end of their year. So Virgo and Leo combined symbolically represented the beginning of their astrological year and the complete cycle of the year as well. So I think that's kind of curious. But I'd love to know what you guys think.
I'm thinking about the strength as related to the right-hand path and the left-hand path. And in this card, especially these cards where instead of forcing this animal to be tamed, it almost is like the gentle aspect or the surrender to the ferocity of this animal is what helps it become in its most playful state. So on the left hand path, we were kind kind of bending things to our will, and with the goal of the same goal as the right hand path, which is surrendering the will to nature. And that's, to me, that's really applicable in herbalism, because I see allopathic herbalism as being sort of a left-hand path, trying to force the body into submission for suppressing symptoms or a desired outcome. And then the right-hand path, which is having herbs that I think that we'll talk about today, that have this way of giving space to allow what naturally the most playful and natural state to occur. And so I see that really presently in these cards here too.
Excellent. I love that. And a similar metaphor would be the crook and flail, right? Mercy versus severity. So how are you going to lead your flock? Are you going to lead them gently, right? Or are you going to punish them in a way to get them to do what you want them to do? But yeah, I like those comments, man.
So I think one interesting way to talk about Leo as a theme would actually be for me to recount a story from a tuning client. I think this was last week. So one thing that now that I'm getting some mileage on working with people in biofield tuning is I'm noticing there is a really powerful connection to the zodiacal sign the sun is traveling through, at least tropically, and what kind of problems people come to me with or intentions they come to me with for their healing. And so this one, I promised Gabe I would tell him this story because he's involved in it in a way, and he's unwittingly. But it's just one of the most fascinating and intricate stories in a 1 hour process that I've ever kind of put together. It's like every tuning feels like a puzzle, and the pattern recognition part of it is what makes it so fun for me and why I think I'm so drawn to it as a practice. But okay, I'm going to get into this. I'm just going to call this client D, so as to not reveal the name. So D came for a tuning because she wanted to get over a fear of public speaking. So there's a very Leo thing right out the gate. That was the intention. Because that's what Leo is definitely for. It's like center of attention, all eyes on me, that type of thing. And she wanted to give, or she was planning on giving a talk that had to do with the science of the heart. So there we go. We're on a Leo theme again right there. So I started with the Sun Star chakra and the Earth Star chakra, which is like, you could consider it like the north and south poles of your energy field. Always looking for those at the beginning to open them up, to adjust them, to be centered if necessary. And with her, I noticed that it was in the front left of her, instead of above the head, it was like out in the front and to the left. And it had this feeling like it was a shield. And as I continued into the tuning, I realized that a big theme of what was holding her back was this idea of protection. And I feel like that's also a very symbolically Leo aligned thing, which we'll see more of as we delve into the plants that are in our slideshow. So as I go forward even further, I start working on the right foot, and I find, as is very common, a got off on the wrong foot type of birth story where actually she died when she was born because she was poisoned when her mother was overly anesthetized in the hospital. So she died on, the baby died temporarily. She did as a baby. And her mom, this is all stuff she couldn't really know, but this is the sense I got as I was working with this, was that while her mom was also knocked out from being overly anesthetized, that's a tough word. People have out-of-body experiences whenever they're knocked out of their body by drugs like this. They might not even always remember these out-of-body experiences, but you can knock out the body and the memory holding capacity, but you don't knock out the consciousness. Consciousness is the thing that is eternal. It's always there. So her mother, during this birth experience, had a powerful intent that was projected of protect my baby, because of what she could see was going on in her out-of-body state where they're trying to revive the baby. And this actually put this like energetic implant in Dee's energy field that worked as a shield. But protection is a two-sided sword in a way. And one of the ways protection works is by avoiding being seen or heard. And as we started working in the left hip, I found that she was holding on to this humongous fear of being exposed. And as we dug into it, she told me that this fear was not like nervousness or anxiety. In fact, her left ankle, where that type of feeling would hang out, was actually clear, but it was existential fear, like survival, life or death fear. And so I began to work on this left hip, and this is we found there a second near-death experience that had been more recent. So Dee is actually 74, so she's had a lot of experiences in life. Really interesting and very strong lady. And then I found this a second near-death experience. It was that a holistic dentist had, long story short, fucked up a tooth extraction, and she lost a lot of blood. And later on that evening, she fell unconscious and busted her left hip, which is why she had to have a surgical implant there. So she basically had like another experience of being anesthetized in a near-death experience, like unconscious, dead to the world temporarily, a repeat of the birth trauma that was triggered, in my opinion, maybe by the childhood teeth being pulled, which is like a disruption of electricity in the body. And those teeth are from all the way back when you're like 5. So I kept going with the left hip because there was so much going on there with this like protective shield. And I found this is where it gets interesting, because if you guys remember the talk I had with Carla Adams a few weeks ago about ancestral biofield tuning, working with ancestor spirits, helping them move on. I wasn't looking for this, but something told me to check further away than the 6-foot space at the left hip, because it was such a strong resistance going on. And I found a stuck ancestor on the far outside of the left hip at the root level, and immediately got this like download that in this being, it was a grandmother, told me it was her grandmother, and that she'd been depressed in her life due to being extremely introverted and shut in and paranoid. And then I asked Dee about this, and she confirmed that her grandmother had grown up in Russia during the Bolshevik takeover and communism, causing her to have extreme paranoia. And when her family fled to the US, she never fully integrated or learned the language very well and was kind of a shut-in. So all that story fit. And her fear of other people was keeping her from going to the oneness, as Carla calls it. So I asked this ancestor to try a little bit of light, as in let in a little bit of this source energy. It's okay, it's safe. And that was helping. Then I asked for assistance, like a divine messenger guide type energy. And what Carla always called these angels that she worked with, she called them Gabriels. So that was on my mind. And in my mind's eye, I literally saw our Gabriel show up and walk this grandmother into the light. And he was smiling just like that right there. And it was really helpful. He made it happen. And I continued investigating some of the ancestor stuff. This grandma and all her sisters had died of lung and heart issues, despite none of them being smokers or anything. This grandma in particular, the Stug ancestor, had died of lung cancer. So the lungs are where we hold grief and sadness and depression. And then back to the concept of the anesthesia type of near-death experience, I found out that her grandfather, married to this grandmother, had to play dead at one point to not be murdered by the Soviets. So pretending to be dead as a, anesthetic, that type of deal. Really wild. So I'm almost there, but it's just such a wild tuning. Can't believe this was all in 1 hour. So we started working on the left side of her heart chakra to deal with stuck grief and sadness that was part of this ancestral pattern. And I found
can I interject a little bit?
Please. Yeah, I've got notes, so I won't forget.
I'm afraid I'm going to forget something because there's already so many things backing up. Like,
yeah, no problem.
You mentioned that near death when she was born, and then another near death where her grandfather had to play dead. When you mentioned the near death at birth, I kept thinking about Charon is the ferryman who carries people across the river Styx, but it's also the name of the wounded healer is Chiron. It's pretty much the same name.
Right.
And so I had a little footnote there, and I was thinking while you're talking about it, but like I have a little inside joke. My father does anesthesia, and he says that his job is to take people as close to death as possible but just when they get to the other side, he makes sure to bring them back safe. So it's like he's giving them a tour of the river Styx, but they never get to stay. They got to come back to the shore where they started every time. That's just funny because he's not mystical, but he is playing the role of Chiron, and he has no idea. He's doing it casually, like it's like, it's just he does it 6-7 times a day.
Chiron has like that word has the car phonetic in it, which is related to the heart, like cardio.
Right. And it also has carry on, which is where, like, in the battlefield is where there's a lot of work to be done, right? But then when you mentioned that the father played dead, man, that's hitting a serious note beat for me, because I have this weird idea that keeps kind of coming back to me. Spend the night in the graveyard where my grandfather's buried. And that's been an idea I've been cooking up for a couple of years now. And every summer I tell myself, if you're going to spend the night in a freaking graveyard, do it during the summer, man. Don't do it when there's, is it going to be cold or weird, when the veil is thin. Don't mess around. Do it during the summer when the veil is thick. When you can be comfortable in a graveyard, you're not going to be shivering any more than you might already psychologically, So this Chiron story and the fact that you brought forward a protective spirit is very close to home for me, because I'm thinking about spending the night on Grandpa's grave one of these nights over the next summer. So
Can't wait.
Just thought I'd mention all
that. Anyone else want to interject before I finish up this tale? All right. So to continue on, working on the left hip revealed we really needed to work on the left side of the heart, where stuck grief and sadness can live. And started getting in there, and I found the point of trauma where her grandson had been born with no left ventricle in his heart. So left side of the heart where this grief stuff is at, it's an ancestral pattern. This story just perfectly reveals how ancestor trauma, until it's rectified, will repeat thematically, generationally, until someone really deals with it and clears it. So this grandson, sadly, he died at 6 years old. And when I asked his name to invite his spirit into the session to assist us, to help us, I found out that his name was Aiden. So clearly this being's role was to aid the family's stuck grief energy and help them feel it and express it. So back to the theme of protection, as I was working with this grief about the grandson, she said she had a spontaneous recollection of when her daughter was 4 years old. She had a vivid dream that something very bad would happen to her that she couldn't protect her from. Back to the protection theme. And she was like having almost a premonition about the grandson experience. And I knew that as we revealed the shielding in her energy field and cleared the grief energy, she would really excel at not having to be life or death afraid of, public speaking and being seen. But what's interesting is, back to that shielding of the Sunstar chakra, she said that her problem with public speaking was that her mind would go blank when she was in front of groups, like she had no reception. And the left side of the mind, the left side of the head, is where it's the receptive side. It's like nothing, she's not tuning into the group to know what to say. But finally, the last part was the back left side of the heart chakra, where we can take on negative energy from other people. As soon as I hit the birth zone in there, I got this image in my mind's eye that just flashed up of what I assumed was the nurse who was in the room who decided to knock out her mother with anesthetic whenever her as a baby was crowning. So the baby was coming, it was all going fine. And there was a nurse in the room that was like, you know what? No, we're just going to knock you out. You're too much trouble, even though it wasn't necessary. This is the type of thing that can happen in hospitals, kind of like a jaded, mean old nurse just decided to do that. But the disruption energy of that face was like, I think that was the last deal that we needed to fix, was because the face was burned into her energy field. I saw the face. That was the first face that she saw when she was a baby being delivered from the womb, and it was not a nice or happy, pleasant energy. So this face that had basically almost killed her was burned into her energy field, burned into her memory field. And until we cleared that, it was hanging around, creating this constant fear for survival, this life or death fear about being exposed. And all of that is very Leo stuff, because the grief elements in the heart chakra, the protection elements, the public speaking and being exposed elements, it's definitely all there. So I just wanted to share that tuning story, because I feel like it's so fitting to, the overall theme of this. And it was just one of the most interesting tunings ever. And I needed to fit it in somewhere to tell, the peeps about it. So not all tunings are that intense, but they all have the potential to go that far. It's just what you're ready for as a soul in the moment that we get into the work is what gets revealed. So yeah, that's my big story. Thanks for everybody for listening. We can now continue on with our scheduled programming.
That's great, man. It kind of makes me think, like, what if you had one character in each station of the Zodiac as your go-to for, like, in your life as a doppelganger to call upon? You'd be in another situation, you'd be like, oh, bring in my higher Michelle, channel my higher Michelle right now in this situation. You know what I mean? Depending on where you are in the calendar.
Yeah, I'll call Michelle for problems with the knees, Capricorn shit. All right, well, let me get our slides back up. And, obviously fire is a theme here.
Yes, indeed. Fire and light, right? Very appropriate to talk about. Lion starts with that LI. And so people can screenshot this if they want, or if they're interested in a study packet, they can just message me and I'll send them one. Also available on my site too, but we got a bunch of keywords. The tarot suit is wands. The fun stuff that I always like to talk about is the mathematical functions. So I think it's interesting that the 4 main math functions have a correspondence with the elements. And I think multiplication corresponds with fire. And when I see that X, I think of 2 fire sticks rubbing together, creating tension to create a spark. And then what does fire do? It spreads, it multiplies, right? And so some people have different opinions about this, but that's kind of how I see it. I think addition is earth, I think subtraction is water, and then I think division is air. The elemental, it corresponds with salamander, state of matter, plasma. I'm kind of jumping around here. But the main planets, Mars, Jupiter, and the sun. And then you can see some of the iconography, right, associated with fire. And then the creatures, plants, gemstones, mythology, etc. And then,
yeah, man, I got to point out multiplication.
Oh, nice, dude.
Good.
That's fun.
Dude, I feel like you should tell that, a brief version of the cat shit story you told me today.
I will. I'll wait. I'll wait till this one's done, because I got a good catastrophe story.
Okay,
nice. There
Don't
you go.
forget it.
And I'll just cruise through this stuff real fast. But Leo, the lion, obviously takes place during the summer season. Makes perfect sense. It's a fixed sign. Corresponds with the sun. Neptune is exalted in Leo. Saturn and Uranus are considered to be in a detrimental state within Leo. The polarity is Aquarius. I know, Chance, we've we've talked about this multiple times, but the Aquarian-Leo connection is absolutely fascinating. There's so many things to talk about with that, which I always kind of gravitate towards the lion, being associated with waterways and fountains and things like that. And also, too, the rising of the Nile during Leo season was a thing that's kind of been, kind of baked into symbolism, I would say. Tropically, around July 22nd to August 22nd, sidereally, around August 15th to September 15th. It's the 5th house, creativity and pleasure. As you already mentioned, matters relating to the heart. I think it's really interesting in Freemasonry. They have this lion's paw sort of concept. And so it's like, I think it's when your fingers are kind of like bent inward and it almost looks kind of like a cat's paw, and they'll put it over their heart, right? The mantra, I will, very, very interesting. And then, of course, the cards, which we've already gone over. And then the cell salt, magnesium phosphate, if you're into that sort of thing.
All right. I feel like I'm really happy to start talking herbs. You know, it usually takes us about 40 minutes. And here we are. This one is so juicy. St. John's wort. Take it away, herbalista.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the herbs that we chose are very rich with mythology. So we could talk a lot about the herbal aspects. Just want to make one comment on Mario and what Mario was just talking about. And since Chiron was brought up, a plant that I have as the plant that is the most archetypical of Chiron is one that we talked about all the way across the Zodiac in Aquarius. And it is yarrow, or the wounded healer of that's the Chiron aspect too of the Aquarius, the heel. And I think yarrow is a great one for is a great wound wort, but it's a great one for the wounded healer too. And I'm thinking a lot about Aquarius because right now, within a degree or so, I am in my solar opposition. So the sun is right across the Zodiac, shining bright on my introspection. And so I'm thinking a lot about my birthday right now, and it's pretty cool. So we'll
I
be
apologize for calling you an herbalista. I meant Michelle. Just kind of fell out.
Herbalisto.
Yeah, herbalisto.
It's better than herbologist. That's some Harry Potter shit right there. Okay, so St. John's wort. We could start by talking about, or we could get into St. John the Baptist later on. I think that'll be cool for y'all to comment about. The name St. John's wort is because this plant, at least in my latitude, it blooms on the summer solstice, not the day before the summer solstice, the summer solstice, like a clock. And I know this because every year I do a solstice herb walk where I go out a day before and I do my little scouting and I'm looking for the herbs that I'm going to talk about. And I'm looking desperately for St. John's wort. And I'm like, every year, I guess it's not going to happen. Now I have faith that I'm just going to find it on the solstice because I always talk about it on the solstice and it always blooms on that day, which is fascinating to me. So the summer solstice has been kind of appropriated in Vatican terms as the Feast of St. John, which is the 24th of June. So in other words, this plant is one of the great signatures of this plant is the relationship to the highest power of the sun. It's the highest power of the sun. And so we could think about that, what the sun means. And just a quick aside here for all of y'all following along and in the audience that's interested in learning about this stuff. We have here some plants that are sympathetic to Leo qualities. We have some plants that are antipathetic to Leo. Some of the sympathetic ones will be have like this enchantment quality. They have these tricks. They have a way of kind of grabbing your attention. They're bold, they're showy. They have a warm and drying qualities. There's brightness, there's gold colors, there's yellow, there's orange. The antipathetic have, we'll see like heart protective aspects, something that is space maintaining, signatures of rhythm, a pump of the heartbeat, of the breath, of the parasympathetic. The antipathetic will be cooling and centering. And I want to bring that up because I really want more and more people to just not have to rely on Michelle and I as the authority on, is this herb, a Leo herb? And because, we have our resources, but I don't always go by what Nicholas Culpeper or some of these other antiquated herbals say. I like to have the creativity to explore this for myself. And I think that that's something I want to invite along. Sorry, my dog. It's not a cat. It would be much quieter if it was, but all right. And then also another great indication for the medicine of St. John's wort is in the botanical name. Hypericum perforatum, or hyper is Greek for above, over, icons, above the icon, above all of the icons. And then what's an icon? It's an idol. It's something that's false. It's something that is not true to nature, and something that we might give our attention to that's not true, that looshes away our power. And so in herbalism, some of the great medicine of St. John's Wort before the 90s, people were talking about St. John's Wort is like a quote unquote antidepressant, like I need an herbal antidepressant. And it's fitting into that that left hand path of being like, herb for medical proprietary condition, and people wanting to go with like an herbal route as opposed to. And prior to that, a lot of herbalists didn't really use St. John's Wort as a quote antidepressant herb. Instead, we think about depression in all different ways. And one of the ways that I would say is like somebody who's lost their light, somebody who's lost their path. Like where's the end of the tunnel, So point A, present. Point B, retirement. Happily ever after, love and marriage, whatever. And then the path gets broken up for whatever reason. The plant closes, so there goes the retirement, or the relationship ends. And somebody might have this darkness, like what's the direction now? If you ever dive deep enough into the water, it's scary when you get to the point where you're like, which way is up? And I really like calling on St. John's Wort for finding that light again. And it does have a spiritual light. It does bring in opportunities. It does give people the ability to see that point at the end of the tunnel. And I don't know what it is, but now I have some faith that I can walk in that direction again. And it's really interesting also for a type of depression that I would describe as seasonal affective disorder, or that's what people describe it as, or SAD, as it's also written, SAD. So here's an herb for, being sad. It's very uplifting. It's very light and bright. And one of the signatures I see for that is how the flower has what looks like little fiber optic cables that are frayed off. To me, as in like it's bringing this light information into the body through the nervous system. And this is the primary remedy for St. John's Wort in herbalism, is that it's an amazing healer between the relationship between nerves and circulation. So when we have Leo, we're not only working with the heart aspect and opening up and feeling joy and expressing our joy and having the ability to take in all the experience and transmute that into joy, but also working across with the Aquarius axis and the delivery of that, in a way that has, working with the furthest tips of the body, the most peripheral way of delivering that information of light and what light is, the condensation of light into a physical matter from its most spiritual point of view to its to like a physical thing. Could you go to the next slide, please, Chance, for a second? And one last thing here I want to show. If you look closely at this photo, you could see little holes. And this is indication of perforatum, which means it's like the leaf is like perfoliated. Like there's little tiny holes in there. And this is a great signature for me because I think of St. John's Wort as a plant that will help us hold our light, keep our light within us. And if you've ever looked at into like spectrometer machines and stuff like that, there's experiments where you could take a leaf off of a plant and put it into this spectrometer camera, and you take a picture of it. And it looks just like a regular leaf, and it's measuring the biophotons. You take the leaf off of the same plant, and you give it a little stress. You chew it out. You call it a name. You flip it off or something like that. And you put it under the camera, and you take a photo of it. And where that stress has been, it starts to leak out some of these biophotons. You take the third leaf, and you really chew it up, and you punch it in the leaf, and you pick up some poop with it, and you just really treat it badly, and take a shot of it, and it's just like glowing. And what that says is that when an organism is under stress, it leaks its light. It's losing its light.
That applies to human beings too.
Absolutely. Yep. It applies to human beings where we lose our light. Now, great masters can offer their light while maintaining and holding their light. But to me, the signature of St. John's wort and these holes is like, where are all the little holes in our field? You know, when you do Qigong and you measure your Qi egg and you're trying to bring your mind's eye to, and then sometimes you're like, oh, there's these little holes that people stuck, some shade that somebody threw in, a nasty comment on YouTube or something like that. And you just take these little arrows out. They're like, you have your shield and the arrows go in the shield. No problem. But then you still have those little arrows in the shield, right? And it's the same thing. It's like little points that leak away our light. Those are icons. Those are idols. That's idolatry. That's giving away that light and attention to something that's not true. And so St. John's wort to me is a great reminder to our body. It helps our body remember to hold that light and hold on to the circulatory power of the light.
Brilliant stuff, man. Particularly interesting that you brought up the biophotons thing and about perforations in the aura. There's so much to that. Like Kirlian photography that is revealed psychic vampirism actually causes punctures, like little dark tendrils come out of the energy drainer's aura and puncture and perforate I guess you'd say the victim's aura. That's a measurable phenomenon. Eating someone's light. Although, like you said, it's always about consent still. And the other reason I wanted to touch on that biophoton and that shielding element is because the most common place where one's auric field might actually get perforated or become leaky, in my experience, is actually at the heart level. And it is in the back left region that is most common to have an issue, because that's the it's like your left armpit, the back of your left shoulder, sometimes up to the left side of the back part of the neck. Eileen calls the left armpit the pit of despair, because that's where we take on sadness or grief or anger from other people, and or just bad vibes from the environment. A lot of people during cooties took on a lot of excess energetic darkness or stagnant chi, because of how well circulated all of the depression and scariness was at the time. Yeah, Michelle, do you want to add to our St. John's wort? Look, I bet you do.
Oh, yeah. Well, Kyle, that was great, because I always love how you focus on the not typical things that are usually always talked about, because I love how you bring up the depression thing, and it's always shoved in. St. John's wort's the first one that goes, but for people too who are looking to use it that way, and if you are on any kind of medication, don't just stop your medication and then start taking St. John's wort thinking that it's going to take the place, because you may have to wean off of something and stuff like that. So just be cautious with that. It's kind of what I like to tell people too. I really love using this plant fresh as well. I think when you're making St. John's wort medicine with fresh plant matter, you're going to get a very scarlet, deep red oil. Kyle demonstrated this in his Leo box. He had a post about the oil, the St. John's wort oil that's in his anointing oil, and it's red. And it should be red. And that is the hypericum that you're seeing coming from that plant. And you can get it when it's dry, but it will never be as potent, in my opinion, because those essential oils, they really diminish once you start drying it. But you could dry it and use it for tea and things like that. I just think it's more effective with when it's fresh. And one of the other signatures that I always love about it, and we spoke of Matthew Wood earlier, but shout out to him, I learned this from him, is that if you look at St. John's wort from the top down, you'll notice that the plant makes like a cross. There's crosses that go all the way down the plant. And so it's another signature of St. John's wort. And it's kind of like holy-esque sort of vibe that's going on. So that's another thing to look for when you're trying to identify it. There's also a lookalike out there, which is usually more in the garden sections of plant areas, because it's a false St. John's wort. The blossoms are quite large. But it looks very similar. It even has that same frayed pistil formation, but it's a lot bigger, and the leaves are a lot bigger. So just a little shout out to that if people are going out and harvesting it, there's a few indicators there if you find the false St. John's wort.
You can actually tell if it's medicinal by taking the head of St. John's the Baptist wort
Yep.
and squeezing out the blood.
Yeah. Love that.
Wow. I was just going to ask if there's something about the flower that has unique properties to the rest of the plant. If the decapitation was intrinsic to its use.
Yeah, that's a great question, and you can kind of see it in this photo a little bit. But when you're looking at the edges of the flowers, you'll see like tiny, they almost look like black dots. That's where that hypericin lives. So you'll be able to, you'll be able to get that on your fingers. And then the perforations also hold an essential oil as well. So that's where that's at. And I always like to look at those perforations as like, they're also a way through. If you are in a state where you're not feeling so hot, hello. If you are in a state of not feeling so hot about certain things, or you're wanting to work through traumas or things like that, I find St. John's wort to be a really good companion because of that kind of gateway sort of thing that those perforations show you as well.
Just have to say, Kyle, your boy looks like the kid on the Sun card. In a lot of classic versions of the Sun card, and usually the kid is on a white horse in front of a brick wall. And
That's right.
Yeah. So
He
you're
always
talking
rides
about.
me like the horse too.
Oh, right on, nice.
And he's Davide, named after King David, the first king of the tribe of Judah, the lion.
There you go.
You got to
Right on, man. I
recreate
love
the sun card while he's that size. Go find a white horse, make it happen.
He's an Aquarian like me, so that's where you get across the way Leo aspect. But he's got a Leo moon, and he's got some big Leo energy, this boy.
Oh yeah, full moon, baby. He's
Yeah,
a
but
big,
he
he's
also-
a big baby.
His hair matches those flowers.
He got 2 certificates today, one from finishing swimming class, one for finishing music class. So he's not going to rest on his laurels with his Leo achievements, but
Very cool.
That's beautiful.
So I have a few things I'll add in about St. John's wort. It's such a elaborate, so much to it. Actually, before that though, there was something I wanted to say at the beginning of the stream. It was in my notes, but I never looked at my notes. So this is a good time to just take a little moment. I'd like everybody here, if you have your hands free or at least one hand free, maybe even do that lion's paw thing that was brought up. Put the hand or the hands over your heart. Just take a moment right now to feel the gratitude for the organ, the living conscious entity that is your heart. And if you need assistance feeling that gratitude, just consider this. The entire time you've been here, every year, every month, every day, every hour, every minute, it has never stopped beating. Or if it did, it started again pretty soon. It is an amazing, amazing part of your life. And it will continue to have just that steady, always there for you, right at your center, powerful energy for the entirety of your incarnation. In fact, incarnation even has the car phonetic in it. So just want to make sure that the hearts get a little love and recognition, because man, they don't even, for being the Leo thing, they don't even ask for the recognition. They're going to do it one way or the other. Sometimes Leo's like, I'm not doing it until you at least tell me how good a job I'm doing or how great I am. But the heart, I think, likes that. So now that we've given thanks, I wanted to talk about the name Hypericum. That's the father of Western medicine. Hypernicus is right there in the name, which is fascinating. And then the whole hyper meaning above is interesting with the context of St. John and his decapitated head. And the head was kind of like a head of Mimir thing, similar to the Norse. It's the head and the wisdom It maybe even potentially spoke wisdom to the Templars if they allegedly had his head. And that whole etymology of hyper and icon, like above the icon, is possibly derived from an ancient tradition of hanging St. John's wort over pictures, typically religious pictures or spiritual in nature. And they would also hang it over door frames. It was all about protection against evil and demons and for cleansing energetically. Other rituals I came across were throwing St. John's wort into the fire and leaping over the flames as a way to cleanse your body of evil spirits, which is, what they considered sickness before germs were an idea. The Celtic St. John's wort traditions called it Sol Terrestris, or the terrestrial sun. And it was known to protect people who were wandering in the woods from getting taken by the fairies or having tricks played on them by the fairies. And I also heard allegedly that the plant was so valued as a healer of wounds that there were sometimes battles that were fought in a time and relation to the location of the flowering St. John's wort, because the power of the ability to potentially keep the people from losing half the men in their village versus only losing a few meant that, the rules of engagement were occasionally that we're going to fight near the St. John's wort so we can at least, not have as bad a casualties, both sides. So that was a couple folkloric fun elements. I have at least a little folklore about most of the herbs on the list. And yeah, anyone else want to give any thoughts on this one before we move forward?
I could comment on that because I actually carry some of those folk methods through today. I put a bouquet of Hypericum above my door at the herb shop, along with yarrow, as for the purpose of protection. And it works. People will come in and they'll stand under it. And a lot of times you could feel their energy coming in. They have a negative thing. And I maintain my space, just like I maintain my auric field here. I also maintain my herb shop. It's a really big extension of myself. And so people will come in and they'll stand under that and they'll just be like, man, I'm out of here. And it happens all the time. And it stops working after 1 year.
Repels the demons.
I know when it stops working because I get, let's just say, breaches, like intruders, like people will come in with their negative energy and it'll start being weirder and weirder. There'll be solicitors and stuff like that. And so it's like, oh yeah, I got to go get some more St. John's wort and hang it up there, and then clears it out. And then there was another one that I was, elf shot is what I call it. When the elemental spirits are fucking with you, I call it elf shot. Like they get their little tube and they you're trampling around their territory, and they don't like you listening to your podcast while you're going through the woods or something like that, and not being respectful. So you get elf shot, and sometimes you just get turned around in the woods like, oh, I think I've been here before. And so calling on St. John's wort for that, but also it doesn't have to be like out there in the woods. It's like, where are my keys? I know I put them here somewhere, like it's just like that your keys end up being where you normally put them anyway. And you look there 1,000 times, but sometimes if I just conjure up the image of offering some St. John's wort, here you go, to St. Anthony and his way of delegating lost things to the elementals. I don't know how it works, but it works. And so I definitely like calling on St. John's wort for elf shot, I call it. Another trick will be like turning your clothes inside out or putting your shoes on the wrong feet, because the elves will just like, I can just imagine they're just like laughing, like they want poetry, they want something fun to happen, and they'll give you pass through their realm for making a fool of yourself, or offering St. John's wort as a gift. So those are my comments on that folklore that I've employed.
Man, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So next time I lose my keys, I put my shirt on backwards.
Yeah, put your shirt on backwards, put your glasses on upside down. Just do something that looks funny,
Oh, that is some dank advice. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to try it, man. That's great advice. Wow. Okay. That's really good stuff, man.
There's a
That
great
makes-
comment from Dylan here that hyper, if you look at it in Greek, could be upper or upper. And if you
Right.
remove the vowel and you swap the P to a B, which is very doable philologically, you get OBR, which is the three letters that give you Hebrew, the word Hebrew in later dissension of language, which means man from beyond. So that's interesting.
That's super
comment.
interesting. Yes. So some of my notes, for one, the thing about the thing above your door having an expiration date, that it only lasts for a year, and then you've got people start seeping through the spell, makes me think of Abraxas, whose name is 365. The gematria of the isopsophy of Greek Abraxas is 365, and that of course is on the strength card, the tail of the lion there. But that's actually that's just, you combine Leo with one of its minor decans, which is Hydra, and you've got a lion-headed snake god. Hydra plus Leo gives you Abraxas right there in the minor decans of the Zodiac. But then also Hypericum perforatum is an HP. There's your a high priest, one who is selected to go to the high place to commune with the higher powers. So many things HP, and that's also an 8 and a 7, an 87. Very mercurial number. And also, so June 24th, right? That's the solstice. That's the pinnacle of the Analema. And then when you come down and you cross the X, that's the day that John the Baptist was decapitated. So John the Baptist Day is at the crown, at the pinnacle. And then when you come down at the neck of the Analema, that cutting of the X at the bottom, that's the day that he lost his head. So we have all things John the Baptist are summer oriented. And that's just so perfect because he's a walking alchemy set. He's like a walking apothecary. He's got like bugs encapsulated in honey. The whole card in the Rider-Waite deck, the whole card is encapsulated in honey. You know what I mean? And that's because he has these insects, locusts that they capture in honey. The whole thing is probably infused with opium and other monopollinated, potential medicines. And then there's a St. John's.
And there's the astrotheological element of the beehive cluster being, and Camelopardus, he has the camel hair shirt, all of that. He's wandering in the wilderness, which is the heavens where no man can go, the metaphysical. Marty has a lot of really good stuff about John the Baptist, Marty Leeds, and the astrotheology of all those little details of his story and the components of it.
Nice. If you now, I just want to mention the St. John's wort is not the same as Artemisia, right? Two different things, right?
Two different things. St. John's wort and mugwort, also called sometimes St. John's herb. Both have like a association with St. John the Baptist. But
okay, well, this is interesting because when you take S off of the word St. John, it becomes Tujon. T. John. And Tujon is one of the ingredients in absinthe, which I think is Artemisia, right? Am I right? Tujon is Artemisia?
Yep. Wormwood specifically, but same family as mugwort. Yes, definitely.
Okay, so I'm in the same umbrella, but I'm like just off on the ingredient list by a degree.
No, yeah, but you're right on. There's totally the huge connection here.
Yeah, nice. Well, yeah. So I think, and another thing, he does those baptisms outside of the city, down by the river. He's in the public. He's out in the wilderness. Yeah. So we're looking at initiation. We're the initiation of the summer there with that June 24th. Oh, and sun baptizes too in a fun way. Like, when you're bathing in sunlight, that's a baptism of its own right.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. Love these connections as always.
It's storming here all day, and the thunder is rumbling. It's like the sky is roaring at us right now here. It's great.
Nice. We've had some actual thunderstorms over the last weekend, and we never get thunderstorms here. It's actually pretty epic. It was very cool.
But if I vanish because of like a power outage, just carry on. The stream should continue.
Right on. Well, and here we are with Motherwort, Leonaris cardiaca, also known as lion-hearted. Sometimes you'll hear it named lion's tail, but we're going to talk about a plant called lion's tail later. But sometimes you'll see motherwort referred to that. This is one of my all-time favorite plants. I've talked about it quite a bit. People who know me in any way probably have heard me talk about this one, but man, you have to honor it when it comes to Leo because she's all about the heart. And she is in the mint family, and a lot of times the mint family plants bring us a lot of calm. So that is one of her best attributes, in my opinion, is calming the heart, calming feelings of panic and fear, uncertainty, grief, and shame. And the way I like to look at this is Motherwort, she brings the comfort that only a mother can. And sometimes that might not translate to somebody. Maybe somebody had a really bad relationship with their mother. A way to look at it is that she's the primordial mother. She's the mother goddess that we all are connected to. So you can't deny these qualities of a mother, whether or not your mother gave you those nurturing, warm feelings or not. This plant will. So that's how plants work in my eyes. And I feel like all of us here can probably say the same, that they can take place for, people or things, emotions that you might not be able to grip as hard, or you might have a harder time translating something or remembering a memory of somebody that brought these feelings. But a plant like Motherwort can do that. And for me, this is a plant that I worked with a lot and I still work with. I've got her right here. I take Motherwort before every stream because she really does just bring calm to any sort of feelings of uncertainty. If you have heart palpitations, if you're having panic attacks, with sometimes a few drops, Motherwort can really bring you down. And I found her to be very valuable while I was going through, I would call it dark night of the soul kind of stuff. When you're doing a lot of trauma work, when you're experiencing loss, she is somebody that you can call on and bring to you, and she will really just bring the comfort that you need. Sometimes too, when you're in these states of feeling really down and stuff, we can kind of get lost in those feelings and it might take you out of the game for a second. One of the things I find Motherwort great for is she helps you to mother up, so to say. So she kind of helps you step back into that role that a mother needs to do. She needs to take care of herself so that she can take care of everybody around her, needs to make sure her home is in order, that she is present and here so that she can be present for the other people so that they can be present, if that makes sense. So it's just this like continuation, this cycle that I see Motherwort having. She also has, when you look at the stalk here, you can kind of see it in this photo, but if you touch Motherwort, it's spiky and it can actually be pretty painful. And so it always reminds me of how a mother can be so soft and warm and welcoming. But if you do something to upset her or whatever, she's going to snap and she'll show you her teeth, or she might have to bring out her spike to teach you a lesson. So I feel like the spikiness of this plant, which is particularly on like where the seed pods form and stuff, is kind of a reminder to be gentle with yourself, be gentle with Motherwort, and to not take her for granted, because if you do, not so fun things happen, really. Let's see what I have else here. This is just a wonderful ally for women in general, men too, but this is a regulator for menstruation, for feelings of, angst, or you're maybe heading into menopause, maybe you're in menopause, you're having hot flashes. This is a great remedy for that, to bring cooling to those times. And I find it really just to be very bitter it is bitter. I don't find that only. It's just bitter. That is the fact of the matter. So not very good as tea, but taking this as a tincture can also help stimulate digestion and things, can help relieve bloating, gas, all of those things that kind of come along with maybe like ovulation, you know, PMSy kind of times in life as well. Can sometimes cause flooding. So if you're a lady who tends to bleed a lot when she is menstruating, you might want to taper off on Motherwort, you know, before your period or during your period. And shouldn't be taken when you're pregnant, because it's an emmenagogue, which we've talked about before, which brings warmth and heat and blood to the pelvic region, which is one of the reasons why it's really great for, you know, helping to ease cramping as well.
I want to share some kind of personal stuff about Motherwort.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't talked about, I haven't brought this up on any streams or anything, but you may, if you've been following for a while, remembered me getting pretty excited because me and my wife Jennifer were expecting, and in I think around the early 20s of July, we had a kind of an accident that caused us to lose the pregnancy. And obviously there's a ton of feeling of guilt and sadness about that, particularly even more difficult for my wife, who had, you know, the bodily aspect of it going on as well. And Kyle sent us a really generous package of a yarrow, hydrosol, and particularly great was the yarrow and motherwort tincture that he gave. And just as an example of how powerful this medicine is, the first couple of days that she was taking it, there were a lot of emotions that started to uncork, and you know, it kind of felt like things were worse for a day or maybe a day and a half, but then everything sort of evened out. And it was like all of the sense of things being on hold and being on pause that had lasted, you know, almost felt like almost 2 weeks, you know, a long time, relatively speaking, of life kind of just being on hold while we were dealing with the difficulty of that grief. The motherwort seems like it just helped us finish what we needed to go through. Not that there won't potentially be little aftershocks and ripples, but it was an extremely good healer. Extremely good. We appreciate that medicine, Kyle. And we're, you know, now we're back in our normal flow of loving and enjoying life and excited for what the future can bring, and knowing and trusting that that was just what was meant to happen, and we needed that experience in that way. And it's all good, and it's all part of the divine plan. But, you know, we brought up saints a little bit, and Saint John. One thing that was really interesting, the morning after, you know, overnight we had lost the pregnancy, Jennifer got a phone call from a random number, and she's just brand new to having a United States-based phone number. So she's not really on any lists for solicitation or anything. Hasn't had a chance to start getting a lot of telemarketers. But the morning after our, you know, dark night of the soul, so to speak, she got a random missed call from a number from St. Joseph, Missouri, a town in Missouri. And St. Joseph is the saint of the patron of the unborn, who is one who guides and cares for and offers healing and forgiveness for people who've experienced the loss of an unborn baby. So there's like some kind of legitimacy to this idea of the saints, whether it's a kind of like collective psychic egregore, it's a way through symbolism that the creator can just reach out and touch us and say, it's all okay, it's part of my plan, or I don't know what, but it was a very powerful thing to notice that, you know, the saint that is exactly for the situation we were in called us in a way that morning. Is a little nudge. So very powerful.
You know, I have a long lost biological brother. His name is Joseph. And I think that Joseph Chance is the Ophiuchus. I think, that's a we've put forward before that Joseph is repped by Ophiuchus in the Sky Clock.
Well, there's a couple of biblical Josephs, but yeah, thunder is rumbling as I'm telling that story. And thanks everybody for letting me share that. It's kind of been on my chest, so to speak. I haven't really told the world as much yet. Maybe Telegram people knew, but we're doing well. And then we appreciate all the love and well wishes we received and the support and all the people that let us know how normal that experience is, or how common it is, and how people easily have children after that. And we were in the mode of a happy accident, but as my buddy Gardner told me, it's like we're more the type to put the intention in and do it on purpose. So it was, I think that experience was just to show us that we're ready and that's what we want. And I think we're going to go for a Leo baby.
All right.
We have a little while to make that happen.
Nice.
Chance, man, thank you so much for sharing that beautiful story. There's so many people that are healed by just listening into the things that you share and you're so open with, and taking things off your chest in Leo season. And so I love you, and I love Jennifer as well. And thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, I just ran to the garden and I got some Motherwort here, and I just wanted to reinforce a little bit about what Michelle was saying. She was saying you can't see it so much on the picture, but one of the there's a couple signatures too. We have the 3 points here, and that's usually an indication for fertility. There's the Trinity, the mother, child, and father, so to speak. We have this very obvious signature of the rhythm of the heart, pump, 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 pump. And
wow, it looks like an EKG if you just did the outline.
Right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
As you see it up here, we're in flower, beautiful Venusian little pink flowers. And as we get down here, like these little spiky balls, they're not going to make you bleed, and they're not going to sting you like nettle. They're corrective. They make you become presently aware. And that's another thing that I love to, like, Motherwort is probably the most made medicine. That's the medicine that I make more than anything else. And so one of the things I always like to teach about Motherwort is that this is a plant that I call time out of mind, for people who are thinking about something in the past and it's presently affecting their physiology. They're thinking about, they're giving their body the signal to fight or run or assess, and it's kind of holding that tension space. Or not even that, but in the future, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say on Vibe Rant tonight? I can't sleep. I'm so excited. And not being present, right? And then when the antidote for that is, like Michelle said, you take a bite of Motherwort, and it's so bitter. It's so bitter. Bitters make things flow, but they also make them flow right down right here. Like, there's nowhere else I could go if I tried right now. My body has to be with this flavor. I'm going to try to go to the beach in Florida. Oh, I can't. I'm going to try. My mind can only be present with this, and that's the flavor of it. So that's what it does for our body, is it not only offers that space maintaining in this toroidal field. Look at that torus. It's like a beautiful torus field there. And around the stalk, like the heart field. It makes it a little prickly for anybody that wants to come in to our grieving space, and then it lets everything just flow presently, brings us back to our rhythm, brings us back to our presence in that motherly corrective kind of way. It's awesome. I'm so glad that Michelle was like, I'm going to talk about Motherwort, because this is one of my very most utilized herbs for sure. It's a great one for anxiety of the mind as well. And so of course, lots of uses for it in women and pregnancy and stuff like that too. But fellas, if you're feeling out of presence, out of being here in the moment, get yourself a little Motherwort tincture. It's great.
I wonder about the power of these medicines when when you are compelled upon tasting them to say, "Ooh, that's bitter. Everything is bitter now. I feel bitter. I'm so much bitter now."
Better.
You're hearing it, aren't you?
Hmm?
Now, I don't want to take the magic out of that spell, but that has worked for generations past, and even if we forget I said it tonight, it's going to happen for generations to come. That a person they are experientially confirming that they are experiencing bitterness in that moment. I just wanted to say that. And we want to walk away because it may be better not to focus too much on the magic.
Let me give one more. My mind was anywhere but here. But now it's here.
I feel like I'm gonna ruin the punchline, but it's also batter.
Right.
It's batter. But no, I love that.
Everything tastes batter. It's batter than being sick. So you think about that.
Some fun things about Motherwort were that there's folklore wisdom that says that you want to brew Motherwort into a tea and strain it and put the liquid into your bath or into the rinse water when you're laundering the family underwear and socks, specifically underwear. So it's probably something Mormons do for their magic underwear, and they just kept it a secret.
Oh my gosh. Wait. Okay, hold on.
Somebody try that and report back to me. Motherwort underwear.
Okay, that's Hades. His first fling was her name, it translates to mint. His first lady, her name is the Greek root word that translates to mint. And so this is his early love, and she's in the underwear, right? We're in the underworld. We are in the undergarments. I think there's something to that the Mormons had sacred underwear, and Hades is the undertaker. I think there's something going on with these sacred undergarments being anointed.
I'm gonna get lost trying to look into that receipt, but
I don't want mentholated underwear though. I gotta say that kind of sounds dangerous.
Oh, they also say you can, instead of covering, your junk with Motherwort juice, to just keep a packet of it hidden with family photos. So it's just somewhere in a hidden, protected location, Motherwort with the photos of the people that you consider dear, that you want to be blessed and protected. I think that's pretty cool. Oh, Kyle, can I play these Angelica clips before we get into Angelica?
Let me set them up.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about Angelica as the common name of the plant is Angelica. It's also the botanical name, and rightfully so. It is very much connected to this psychopomp angel, and in the ways that we can imagine an angel as a messenger of God in the field, and also as the guardian angel, the placenta. And so I want to show, I put some in the Vibe Rant call-in line Telegram chat. I put 20-second videos. One of them with the whole profile of Angelica, and I want you to take a look at the leaves as it passes through the leaves. There's almost like little specks of angelic light all throughout this plant that if you look straight at it, you can't really see it, but it's kind of like a side of vision, kind of specks of light all throughout the tips of the plant. And also the signature of how the head comes out of the stalk, which is going to be a great significant signature for, I'll get to that, but it has a lot to do with birth and placenta. Okay. So go ahead. And I'll tell you about placenta. Okay, so look at that. This is the unbloomed, and it looks like this membrane is like a vaginal lips. So the crowning head coming through. Angelica. You see the purplish stem. This is Angelica artropurpurea. And the purple stem is a great signature for stagnation of blood, movement of blood, which is one of the greatest virtues of this plant. It moves blood. If you just get a glimpse of the leaf, you can't really see it so much on this one, but every once in a while, it just catches the light and you see the little tiny glimmers at the termination of the leaflets. And you'll see that especially more in the other one. So here's a story about, okay, here's Angelica in its beautiful conical stalk and moving down to the leaf. Oh yeah, there's just little glimmers of light there. It's really, really subtle. And maybe in person, you would see this much better. This plant gets 7, 8, 9, 10 feet tall. It is angelic on the field, very angelic on the field. And it has a lot of connection with the angels. In fact, like the name Angelica comes from I don't know, copy and pasted history account. You know, there's so many people that are guilty of that. You see those little tiny little specks of light that are moving through. Basically the copy and pasted account is once upon a time in the Black Plague of Northern Europe, man or woman or living person came in contact with maybe an incarnation of the angel. The angle of the sun was just right. What is that bright, beautiful plant that's just so big and showy? And it was supposedly the incarnation, the staff of Archangel Michael coming down to say, I'm going to fix this plague. Well, in your previous Vibe Rant episode, you guys really did a nice little you brought a lot of suspicion to what the word plague could be. This isn't me in my herb walk. I just thought Leo energy, show me and me, pointing to the size of this stalk here.
Dude, that plague revelation was a mind blower. I think that plague idea has legs. I'll let you unravel it though for people that weren't there.
Yeah. So, okay. The Angelica came in this guy's dream, or he saw it in the field, and it said, "I'm the cure for the plague." And so that's where it's got its reputation. It's like this cure all. And in a lot of old herbals, it's said that Angelica can fix any affliction, right? So it has this like very, very powerful association with just about anything. Well, whatever the plague was, the bubonic plague, bringing germ theory into question of, it's funny, if you look at the Wikipedia page, it says, it was spread by rats and fleas, and person-to-person citation needed. So yeah, we're going to need that citation there, buddy. We're going to need that citation of person-to-person. Can people get sick from living in squalor? Of course. Can they get sick by living next to rats and fleas? Of course. Could they get sick
lots of poop?
Could they get sick person-to-person? Sure. Could they get sick person-to-person because of an alleged, germ or something like that? Well, citation needed, right? So can somebody come into an area and take away a population who is like very closely connected to the land, and they're living, with their spiritual elements, this plant being one of them, and having that spirituality supplanted with, let's say, the Roman Church, or with Asiatic horde or something like that. Okay, so there's your person-to-person. And then this plant also it's a sacred plant to the Laplanders, northern Finland. I'm hoping Mario's bells are starting to ring here, because this is a very polar-like plant. It's up there. There's not a lot of trees, but it's one of its names is ground ash, ash being the Yggdrasil, the tree of life. And so here's a very tall tree that you'll see on the plains that has this like elements of the firmament of the stars. And then here, this is the hollow tube right here. So here's the tube of Angelica. A lot of times it's used as a flute. But as you can see, whenever there's a stalk that has such a hollowness to it, this is always a signature for psychopomp between realms, going between this realm to that. Now, what realm? It's the messenger. It's the angelic messenger. So it's going from our earthly realm to a heavenly realm, bringing the messages of God for purifying the blood. It's a great heart warmer. It's a great detoxifier. It moves the blood. It's warming and it's bitter. So plants that are warming and bitter are very fantastic in herbal medicine because they work on the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. They equalize the blood. They move things out. And so that would be good for chest congestion in general, heart congestion. And in Ayurvedic medicine, the word is, the Sanskrit word for this is charoka. Charoka sounds like Cherokee. Charoka. Yeah, Charoka. Sounds like Cherokee. And charoka is, in Ayurveda, this plant is not used so much for its physical elements of purifying moving the menstrual blood, pooling blood in the bottom of the body and moving blood in the heart, but it's used more for pacifying the wind and pacifying the earth. So kapha and the vata doshas. So it's helpful for psychosis and getting people off their ass and being lazy. So this, going back to Finland now for a second, this was called bear root. And the reason why is because the Sami people would observe that the big bears going, Ursa Major, the big bears would go into their caves in the wintertime, and they were big kapha-like earthy beings, and they would come out in the springtime when this plant is blooming in around Beltane, by the way. And the first thing that they would find is aromatic roots to move their digestion and get them going. So you have the archetype of the bear in its big form and its emaciated, let's say Vata, just got back from like the dreamland world. This is the Vata. This is what Vatas are always doing. They're like, how do I convey this information? It's like, man, you got to eat first. That's the first thing you got to do. And so Angelica is a great pacifier of psychosis. And I think it is like probably the best spell breaker plant. It's my Herb of the Week and my Herb of the Week series. And I just myself had Angelica come to me in a lucid dream state, and it gave me a remedy for something that I think is completely original. I've never heard any other herbalist talk about this remedy. And I think that Angelica, this is what it told me, because it's a remedy for psychosis and for cutting the bullshit and for moving things out and purifying things and having a bold heart and being rooted and moving between the realms. It's a remedy for the alien psyop. So we're going to need some herbs for that, y'all. And I think we could start with Angelica. This is one that I was recommending to a lot of people in March and April of 2020 for this reason, because I think it's a great plant for clarity and clarifying and breaking spells. It's in the carrot family, so it's got the umbrella-like aspect. And then here's my final story on Angelica before I turn it over. When my son was born in February, it's a cold night, cold day. Baby was delivered. I have him in my arms, hand him to his mom. The first thing that we administered to her was 2 milliliters of Angelica root tincture. Why? Because it births the placenta. And it has all of these signatures of the placenta. It has that polar tree symbolism, looking from down to above. It has the birthing symbolism of the head moving up from the stem. And so this was the last meal, I should say, that they enjoyed together as mother and child unit before that guardian angel was what's the word? Not delivered, emerged. I have to keep correcting my language away from the legal stuff. You know how it goes, y'all. But emerged as a guardian angel for my son. And so I like to call on Angelica as well to heal the relationship that we have with our own placenta. I think that this is a really good plant to work with. And so I know there's a lot of weird stuff, aliens, your long lost placenta. But here's one last weird one, is that I put a drop of this into vinegar when I boil it to clear the chemtrails, as like calling upon my Archangel Michael to like totally crush, because he's a real crusher. And it works. It works really well for me when I use my little tiny intentional potions. Just a drop of Angelica. How could a drop change the sky? I don't know. Thy will be done, not my will be done. That's kind of the I will Leo thing. So yeah, that's all I got on, that's not all I got on Angelica, but that's all I'll say.
Excellent, excellent. I love it, man. And yeah, my Ursa Major senses were absolutely tingling. Very cool. I'd love to chime in about a couple things here. When you were talking about Bear Root and you're talking about the polar stuff, obviously I am thinking about Ursa Major Minor. And I learned something pretty cool recently, and I shared this with Slick because we were on a show recently together. But I came across a quote reading a very polar-centric book that I thought was very interesting and unlocked something regarding angelic symbolism, I would say. And so the quote is, 14 is the number of the 2 7-star constellations revolving around the interstellar axis. And so what the author is referring to is the 7 stars of Ursa Major, the 7 stars of Ursa Minor. Combined, you have 14 stars. Well, it's interesting because both of those constellations, right, are dippers. So they're vessels. And the number 14 relates to the Temperance card, which what do you see in the Temperance card? You see an angelic figure. And what is she doing? She's pouring one vessel. She's pouring liquid from one vessel to the other. There's one above and there's one below. When you are studying Ursa Major and Minor, the dippers, the Big Dipper and Little Dipper, you'll notice that because they're constantly revolving around the pole star and because of how they're actually situated in the sky, what you're seeing is this perpetual pouring from one to the other as it revolves around the North Star. And so when I see now these 2 vessels in the Temperance card, the art card, that's what I believe they're actually referencing. I think that's the polar sort of decode with all of that. So I just had to throw that all out there, given the fact that you brought up bears, polar symbolism, angels, all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm thinking of.
Brilliant.
That's so cool, the alien psyop thing, because if I was to put, as someone that's looked into most fringe things pretty far, or at least, had my ear to the ground about them for quite a long time, if there was any reality to aliens, it seems to be more aligned with demonic activity than little green men from Mars. So for Angelica to be something that you could use with that, it actually really just fits into the theme of the fairy folk, the fae folk. And the other thing I found about Angelica was that you might be able to use it as a journey medicine to open the mind for divination purposes, prophetic visions, shamanic journey work, perhaps by burning it as an incense. Does that sound right, Kyle?
It's fantastic as an incense. It really does light up the connection between your higher and your animal self. It really does bridge that gap, like that. Moving from one realm, the underground realm, to the above ground realm. It's beautiful.
So Marty says, so what I hear from Dr. Denton is I should roll up a monster joint of Angelica if I'm suffering from alien belief syndrome. This is the wisdom I tune in for. Much love to all the InnerVerses. Thanks for the super chat there, Gnostic Academy. Everyone check out that channel. It's definitely worth a subscription, and be there for their Sunday morning sermons. Really good stuff. Now, I'm wondering, since, there's this signature of psychopomp plants with the hollow tube thing. Gabe, are you actually hollow on the inside? Are you like a tube man? I've never looked in, underneath your exterior to know.
When I fly.
But seriously, that is a really, really cool signature of plants with the hollow stalk like that. That's going to stick with me as a awareness in case I ever need to do some psychopompy emergency style.
Right.
Absolutely.
For me, that hits Euterpe, the muse of music, and who is number 3, associated with the Rixamachus, who is the healer in the Symposium. Euterpe, and so she's always got a flute. And in my project, that's also card number 3, position number 3, right? Is the Empress card, and she's holding that lotus flower. And the lotus flower in the Thoth deck has a pronounced stalk that looks just like what you were holding there. And I've associated that also with the flute. So that's really beautiful. And I even made a passing comment, just kind of, on my little project, that it would be like a breathing tube for a ninja, which is kind of, I was just being silly, but it's kind of cool because that's the bridge between worlds. It allows you to be down in the underworld to breathe, even while you're down under there. So it's kind of neat that you're talking about it as a psychopomp symbol.
Anytime you can bring up ninjas.
Oh yeah,
yeah, right.
And also, I got to say the placenta part is so awesome. It's so awesome because of the pinwheel aspect of the nature of the plant. It's so awesome. Yeah, it like accentuates the umbilicus. The value of the umbilicus in all ways. I love that.
So I was just going to say, you can find older illustrations of Mercury Hermes with a flute. He's playing the flute, right? And same thing with Pan. He'll play a flute. And there's a lot of symbolic similarities, in my opinion, with Hermes and Pan as well. And it's actually funny that this is coming up because I just recently looked into the mythology of the Pied Piper. Very, very interesting. Gabe, have you looked into that ever? Any of you guys? It's fascinating. I can't believe I had never really decoded it before. I'm not going to get into the whole storyline or whatever, but obviously the pipe, the flute, is a big part of the story, leading 130 children away from their village to a mountain, into a cave, and that's what happens when you don't pay the Pied Piper. And so to me, the Pied Piper is very much a mercurial sort of figure. And Mercury, as I've said for a long time, right, relates to the phallic sort of energy. And I'm kind of just reminded too, I always like to say that it's all about poles and holes symbolically. And when Kyle was holding up that stalk, that hollow stalk, it's like the pole is the hole. The hole is the pole. So there's actually kind of like no difference between the two. The more and more and more I consider it and think about it and do research on it, they're one and the same.
It totally is. It's one in both. Sounds like you read a very detailed account of the Pied Piper with 130 kids in particular. But the Pied Piper rings so similar to the dancing plague that I've always had this idea that there was a long time frame in history where people had no art. They just did not have art, or they had very limited access to art, and they had only certain type of music, and they had, they didn't have like a vast experience of what music could be. And so when a concentrated form of artistic expression, like a dancer or like a traveling theatrical group comes through town, they seed the consciousness of these people who don't consume culture all day long constantly. And so by just passing through town like Gandalf, they leave these ideas and these things in their minds that can later on come to life in the form of a dancing plague or whatever what was the other example we were just saying?
It's interesting though that you talk about
leading the children to the mountain.
That's it. Yes. Oh, yeah. So a guy comes along and he's singing on a song with a different kind of musical cadence. The kids have never heard this instrument before, and he's dancing. They've never danced before, and all of a sudden their sympathetic magic kicks in, and they're compelled to follow along and to do what he does because it looks like fun. It's like, and it's also got it's the Huck Finn where he tricks the guy into painting the fence for him, kind of thing. Sympathetic magic. That's kind of.
The Ice Cream Man.
Ice Cream Man, too.
Ooh,
damn.
That's a good one.
Check this out, Gabe. You're talking about cultural impact on the youth, essentially. The Urban Dictionary definition of PIDE is an acronym, porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Whoa.
And that's something influencing the youth more and more, like, people very young.
Okay, hold on. There's a pope that just passed away. His name, Rat Singer. The Pied Piper is a rat singer. Bing,
That's
bing, bing, bing.
Exactly.
It was right there in his name all along, y'all.
Nice, dude. That's a great connection for sure.
Now, hold on, there's something about the ice. This was kind of a weave. My mind is in a lot of places right now, Dylan. Hold on. What are you talking about?
Dylan said the word syringe comes from the Latin word syrinx, meaning a reed tube pipe, reed pipe, panpipe.
Whoa. Wow. I think we just hit a real chord in the medicinal history. Like, where does the real first syringe come from? I've always wondered this. And I've even thought that they might have used a porcupine needle. Like, wouldn't a porcupine needle be like the most quick access natural syringe? But for medicinal uses, like you have to have a means to inject things. So the flute and oh my gosh, there's even medicinal snus, right? That using the medicinal snus is an old shamanistic way to heal people, to like blow the stuff up in their nose. So we really are looking at the implement of the medicinal industry. Like, they need these vessels that get into your vessels that convey the information so the body can heal. Oh man, I don't have the light on, but euterpe and eryximachus. Oh, okay, it's all coming back to me. I think eryximachus's name, I think his name is actually encoding. I think there's runes in here, guys. The rune for ice is it's like a letter 1, but flipped. Isa in reverse. The letter for ice is Isa in reverse. It is a flute. The shape of the rune is the flute. So
it's the world axis as well.
Isa is a word meaning savior, and is the root of the Iser or the Aesir.
Yes.
Words for the top god in many cultures.
So everything we're pointing at with these words, all of our words are like a flute finger pointing phallus, pointing at this number 3 Eryximachus character, who I think the runes are actually part of the crack in this code. Where is it? There we go. Eryximachus. He's the number 3 savior healer. His muse is your euterpe, but this is the muse of ice. Music, music. This is the muse of ice. And I think this Isa and the flute and the 1 and the rune figure is all baked into this this character in the position number 3. And I'm pretty sure 3 is the number 1 triangular number. So the 130 kids, the 13 moon cycles, the 1 to the 3 reduction, it's all kind of cooking down in a really fascinating way around Eryximachus, the Greek patriarch of healing and medicine.
Ooh, very interesting, dude. Yeah, I want to pull at this one a little bit more at some point, But we actually just talked to a rune woman yesterday. Her name's Ingrid Kincaid. And we talked about Isa specifically because
That's when it came to me. That's totally.
Nice.
I was in the bleachers, like, oh my gosh, ice, muse ice, the muse of ice and music, and it was crazy.
Perfect. I love it. Just real quick too, just want to say that the Pied Piper business, I'm interested in the mythology right now because I'm doing a Beatles sort of deep dive. We're going to talk about it on Thursday. There's a lots of interesting psyop-y stuff going on with that. But some people have put forward that especially with their Sgt. Pepper's album and kind of just their get-ups and everything, is that they are the Pied Pipers. They're the children. They are leading the children away from the village with their music and everything else. So I think there's something to be said about that. Also kind of relates to shepherd symbolism, which gets really into the nuanced sort of details about what happened with the Beatles and Paul McCartney and things like that. But I think it's all related. Anyways, great stuff, dude.
And now back to the plants. That's why everyone loves this series, is because the tangents, you never know when they're going to strike, and then they go wild.
Yeah, we go everywhere. It's cool.
Yeah, really that was a big one.
Well, sunflower. We had to talk about sunflower. Here we are. Just looking at them brings joy. I I see a lion in this flower, really, personally. I see the lion's mane in the petals. I see a face. And then if you look sunflower up online too, a lot of people will actually like take some of the seed, like where the seeds would be, and they'll create a smile or eyes or whatever. And then it really looks like a lion. But this is one of my favorite flowers to grow, actually. And ours aren't quite open yet. Otherwise, I would have brought some in. But I did show the calendula earlier, and sunflower and calendula are in the same family, which is a huge family, the Asteraceae family, which is a daisy family. And one of the similarities those two have is that they both produce sort of like a resin, right? It is a resin. And if you ever harvest calendula or you harvest sunflower, you'll feel that stickiness on your fingers afterwards. And I don't know if Kyle, if you've ever used sunflower resin in an incense, but I bet it would be freaking awesome because sunflowers, they smell really nice. And I really love the smell of them. There's a warm, resinous scent to them. I really love cooking with sunflower seeds in particular. One of the more, readily available seeds, but you can do so many things with them because you can soak the seeds and then you can grind them into a paste and you can make, some kind of like vegan sunflower cheese if you would like. I have a great recipe for a sunflower pate, which is kind of the same idea, but you're also using potato and a lot of nice spices. So there's a lot of just really great medicinal value in the seeds as well. Very high in vitamin E. That's one of the things that sunflower is really well known for. And, sunflower and other seed oils, I feel like over the last handful of years get a really bad rap. And I don't know if a lot of people will say don't eat them. They're inflammatory, things like that. And I think one of the most important things about that whole thing is just to find very high quality, cold pressed organic seed oils, and sunflower seed oil as a carrier or an oil to make medicine with is really great. One of the reasons why is because it's really light. Another reason why it's great is because it has a very low scent profile. So if you're wanting to infuse something like lavender or rosemary, something that has a very high scent point to it, sunflower oil is a really good go-to for that because it's going to really impart the scent into the oil. And you're not going to have something, overpowering the scent like olive oil would or something like that. Now, one of the things I learned about this is that it's known as the fourth sister, particularly with Native American tribes. And they would plant sunflowers on the north ends of their garden beds, and they would plant it among corn, squash, and beans. Corn, squash, and beans are the other three sisters. So this is kind of like the fourth sister of a main crop that would be used for food and nourishment and medicine, because all of those plants also have medicinal properties too. And you can use the leaves actually as compresses to kind of, if you're having maybe a skin rash of some kind or any kind of inflammation that's on the surface level, you could grind up the leaves and use it as a poultice. And you can kind of see in this photo, it actually has sort of a heart shape here too. When I see sunflowers, I see strength and I see boldness and I see hardiness. And when you grow sunflowers, or even if you don't grow them or you get to be in the presence of them and you just touch their stalk, they are so just strong and resilient, and they can waver in the wind and they can bounce back and they can become very heavy, but they can actually support their own weight because these top flower heads, that's where all the seeds come. And so they can get really heavy. And so it's really interesting to see the life cycle of a sunflower too, and how the young sunflowers typically follow the sun, and you can watch it throughout the day, that happening. And that's always really nice. It's very nice to be able to harvest these and harvest the seeds, but also if you have an abundance of them, you can leave them for the birds, because the birds just go nuts as the fall comes. They will just go crazy for this. One of the other things I learned recently is that the Aztecs called this a shield flower. And because of its correlation with the sun, they would actually use this as a means to honor the war gods. And when you hold a sunflower in your hand, if you ever cut off the flower itself, you really do feel that protection, that shielding that could come. So there's a lot of like little clay medallions that I found that have sunflowers on them. In Mexico City, a lot of times sunflowers will be left on altars just to show the reverence that they have for this flower and how important it is to them. Because not only was it that aspect of the sun and the war god, but it's the food, it's the sustenance that comes from it as well. So I feel like there's so much to offer with this plant. And then also Herb of Apollo. And I have to shout out Maxine Miller, one of my favorite artists and illustrators. She has a wonderful illustration of a sunflower, and she has Apollo in there. And the way she depicts it is just really nice. And she brings the bees in with it. So you can look that up too if you just look up Maxine Miller, and you can find her print. It's a glorious print. Also associated with all the sun goddesses as well. I'm pretty sure I read that Demeter is usually associated with sunflowers, if I'm not mistaken.
Love it.
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick, I think it's interesting that this shield business keeps on coming up. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So the shield flower, and then I brought up earlier on the sun card, you're generally going to see a brick wall, right? So the shield being for protection, it's a barrier, it's a partition, and then you see that wall on the sun card. And for a long time, I wondered what that's all about. And I know I've mentioned it before here, probably forever ago, or maybe during Gemini season, I can't remember. But a lot of hero twins are associated with building the first wall in like a town, and they're credited for founding the town. So Romulus Remus in Rome, they built the first brick wall. Brick symbolism relates to the sun because you bake the bricks outside traditionally, and you would start baking bricks, and you would resume building projects when the sun returned during Gemini season. And even it's not uncommon to see two children, like brothers or twins, in front of this brick wall in older versions of the sun card. Very much related to the Gemini twins, in my opinion. So sun symbolism and Gemini, completely related in so many different ways. And then I'm just kind of reminded of the glyph of the sun, right? The common glyph, which is a dot. It's the circumpunct. It's the dot with a circle around it. I've always said that I think that this is actually a polar symbol that was turned into a solar symbol, but regardless, that outer circle very much reminds me of that same partition, this same wall, this same sort of barrier. You know, in a way reminds me of Saturn and how Saturn is the end of the line under the traditional planetary system. So Saturn is related to walls and keeping things in, and it's like symbolically, I think, like the shell of an egg is very Saturnian. The walls of our home and the roof, very Saturnian, right? Keeps things in, keeps things out as well. And so I'm just kind of noticing and appreciating this shield business, this protection business, keeping things out, keeping things away. And so when she said that it used to be called the shield flower, I'm like, oh man, there's like a few things going on here. So I don't have it all completely figured out, but just kind of acknowledging it for what it is and from what I can gather.
Oh, and if you, go ahead. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say there's another slide after this to just demonstrate the spiral of life that is just like so prominent in this flower, which is gorgeous.
Ooh, yeah.
That's what I was going to mention. If fire signs, if Aries is the ignition, match spark, and if Sagittarius is the wildfire, Leo being like the hearth that when you give it attention, it also reciprocates kind of energy backwards. It has this radiance. And so this is why I love growing sunflowers, or just looking at sunflowers in general, is you could stand in front of a sunflower and just be mesmerized and entrenched. And also typically there's going to be a bee on it, just doing the little dance, moving around in this pattern. So it's so cool to watch and be around. It's a very, very, very Leo herb for sure. The other thing I was thinking about too with sunflowers is that as a medicine, sunflowers are really great at relieving damp, cold states in the body. So you could say something that's like, especially in the skin, because going back to Leo oil access, previous herbs we had, St. John's wort, all those little holes in it are traps of oil. The bare root or Angelica is a very oily plant, which is why it's good for the vata. And this plant is really, really oily. That's why we get sunflower oil. And so if somebody gets a chill, and this is a summertime cold, what happens is
Anagram oil, in case people miss that.
You're warm, you're sweaty, a rain comes and your pores, which are open for sweat, now all of a sudden they get you have like a different type of pore that produces oil, and the oil comes up to like insulate your body, and it can get inside of your sweat glands and kind of clog things up. That's what I would call a chill. And so somebody's ventilation system is kind of gunked up from their own sebum oil. A great remedy for that is eating some sunflower seeds, or just getting some sunflower seeds from the gas station, at the Shell gas station, in fact, and throw them in some water, even if it's just like the 50-cent sunflowers. Throw them in some water and make an infusion of them, unsalted preferably. But just sunflower, so iconic of summertime. The boys of summer at baseball games, spitting out the sunflowers. Just you're just watching people do their thing, and at the same time you're kind of getting something out of giving your attention to it. I think sunflower is a great iconic flower for that.
Gotta take a moment and give thanks to the great Peter Shell for a very generous large super chat, and he's matching the super chat he gave us last Wednesday. So thank you, man. Shell, yeah. That's really kind. I appreciate that so much. That helps me keep doing this. Without that support, putting food on Jennifer and my table. Very kind. Thank you, man.
And the sacred number too, 108, which is
about how many people are watching the stream across all of our channels.
Ooh,
whoa, nice.
Perfect.
That's nice.
That's cool.
Well, that leads me to my next point on the shield flower aspect of it. I hope everybody has their mental zodiac dialed on, because we are talking about the sun card over in Aries, which often does have sunflowers depicted in the young child, sometimes two, who I think those two children on my Thoth deck sun card is Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. Those are the two children on my sun card, and there's a lot behind that, but it has to do with the sun and the thoroughbred that the child is sometimes riding on. It's even the wall. Remember, you're talking about the wall, so we got Waldo, Emerson, and Thoreau. But I wanted to mention the S and the F with the sunflower. S and F in old script were interchangeable. It was the same font piece, the same text type. So that's just something on my mind when I think of, how is F and S related? That's just one of our etymological, philological allows, is the F's and S's do have this flip-flop, this slip-slop that they like to do sometimes. But okay, the shield flower, that is important because we are in Leo, and it's going to have a 180 reflectivity down into Aquarius, which is where Pegasus exists. Pegasus, is a minor decan of Aquarius. And so the decapitating of Medusa happens in Capricorn. The next stage over is where Medusa comes out of her neck. So we go out of Capricorn into Aquarius, and Pegasus comes out of Medusa's head, as though we're rolling through the scenes of the story of Perseus. And Perseus is stationed in Aries, holding the head of Medusa up there in the sun card. So the sun card is the baby Perseus, who's in the constellations, is holding the head of Medusa, who is on the shield of Athena. So the shield flower reflecting Pegasus right now, going, again, we're all over the zodiac, I know, but from Leo, there should be a reflectivity of Pegasus at 180 degrees. So kind of wanted to put all that. I know it was all over the Zodiac, but it does make a lot of sense. When you hear the word shield, I think of 180-degree reflectivity relationships.
Shield symbolism is also solar symbolism and boat symbolism. There's a lot to that. The priests of Apollo. Speaking of, seems like every major flower has got some Greek god getting it on with some nymph, and then things don't go well and they get turned into a flower. Sunflower is no different. There was an Oceanid nymph called Clute who had a little affair with Apollo, and eventually Apollo got bored with her and wanted to go on to his next conquest. So Clute goes and finds the father of Apollo's new boo, tells him about their relationship, and this father is like, well, I'm not going to let my daughter just be played by this, pimp and sun god. And so he forces his daughter to break off the relationship. Apollo gets pissed off, and so he turns Clute into a sunflower. And so it's kind of like a unrequited love story because she continually follows his movements forever. There's a lot of stories like that in Greek mythology. It's like, you got a flower. Well, we got a story about how the gods were promiscuous and vengeful. That's their thing.
I wonder if there are any body parts named after Clute.
Well, let's just look at the strength card or the lust card, I should say.
Yeah, right.
on the Thoth deck.
Just real quick, I'm just noticing right now too, we have corn and sunflower growing, and they both kind of provide a little privacy. So they shield us from, people who might be driving by or whatever. So I wonder if that's kind of something too, just like, the actual, just how these plants are and how tall they get and everything else that they shield and give you a little privacy potentially. I don't know, maybe perhaps that's the wall, just a row of sunflowers, right, just growing.
Back to your SF switch, Gabe. Shield and field. Got a field of sunflowers.
Ooh.
Shield of corn and flowers.
Wow.
Excellent.
Nice
Also, that
one.
means too, a Sunday is fun day then, huh?
Yes.
Right?
He's getting it. We're getting it. This is real.
I'm starting. Yeah. And then I just wanted to say the last thing regarding the partition, wall, shield business is that the glyph for the sun does look very similar to Saturn from a bird's eye perspective, right? And so there is this whole idea, I know I've brought it up a million times probably, but that Saturn was the old sun. I'm not saying that that's what I necessarily subscribe to. There's also an idea too that Saturn was once the pole star as well during the original sort of alignment, if you're looking at the electric universe side of things. But
and then there's the Saturn being the name of the sun, just this sun in older mythos before it got assigned to the planetary. Actually, pretty much every planet in its modern nomenclature was a solar deity's name somewhere at some time. And then there was a point where the Greeks switched up the naming convention of the planets, and they all have previous names, like Mercury used to be called Stilbo, yada, yada. That's a side tangent. But I think that might be where some of the Velikovsky theories about the old alignment and Saturn being the planet Saturn being a sun at one point, I think that might be where the confusion steps in, is that it would be confusing to see Saturn referred to in a solar context or Kronos, but it seems to be the case. There's one thing about sunflowers that I thought was kind of neat too, that Pizarro, the explorer of South America in 1530s, he claims that the Incas had a sunflower god, sun god named Inti. The sunflower was the image of that god, and that the priestesses wore gold discs that were made to look like sunflowers over their breasts, kind of like, your Hawaiian coconut bra, as a honoring of Inti, their sun god. Hard to know what's true about the pre-contact mythos and practices of the Americas, because all the people that did the good work of documenting that stuff, most of the work got, book burned, because I think it refutes Judeo-Christian history by demonstrating that the system was worldwide at one point.
Also, strengthening the bond between Saturn and the Sun. Saturn's day, Saturday, Sunday, right? These are the week. This is the weekend, and so that's kind of interesting that they're right next to each other in the days of the week, and signify the ending and beginning, depending on what part of the world you live in, of the week itself.
Right.
Saturn
I
was
always-
called Phano prior to the Greek season Chronos, according to Dylan. Good call.
Nice. So one thing about the sun card that I always point out is that the sun is what lets our eyes see. And, there's been a lot of work done seeing it through the lens of sun worship. But I always point out that at the same time, there's sign worship, and it is literacy. The sun card brings to my mind literacy. The sun lets our eyes see, but the signs give us literacy. And so that wall behind those kids on the sun card, Mario, to me, that's also a library. It's the Library of Alexandria behind them, is also part of that wall. But I just thought I would throw that in there, the literacy of sign worship.
JLo's bringing up the Super Bowl Janet Jackson boob reveal. I'm sure there's some culty stuff in that, no doubt.
Oh yeah, that was very amusing for me still to this day.
Hawthorn, man, this one is just really deep. There's a lot going on with Hawthorn. Excited to hear Kyle break it down for us.
Yeah, the craggy Cretaceous. Let's see. I think of Hawthorn as the archetypical heart remedy. And to see why, I think I'll take this to a distant angle of observation like this Aquarian normally does. And let's begin with the cycle of the year. And for those that didn't follow their Pope's calendar and know that Beltane is May 1st or 2nd, they relied on the blooming of the hawthorn. When the hawthorn bloomed, Beltane was then. So sometimes it was a couple days earlier, or sometimes it was a week later. But Beltane, the connection with the bringing back of light of the sun, here's a solar idea, right? Then we have this is a picture of a plant of the hawthorn tree that I took. This is a tree, by the way. And it's a relative to the apple. I believe that the apple may be a cultivated version of the hawthorn. So think about the apple and all the things apple related. And I'm not saying that it's a 1-for-1, but it's very close. Apple a day keeps the doctor away. The apple that's on the back of my computer and whatnot. And so very similar looking fruits, very similar looking blossoms. And then one thing that's really noticeable about the hawthorn tree, as you can see in this picture here, that I took, this beautiful rainbow that just, this is a tree that's associated with the Fae folk, and I'll get there. But the most obvious thing to me is the massive thorns, huge thorns. Their seemingly only function is for offering space. Chance,
Jennifer stepped on one last year.
You stepped on one?
Jenny did, yeah.
Oh dear. Would you mind going to the next slide, please? Okay, so here's the berry. You see the five petals that were formerly the flower and little tiny looking apple-like things. Now, when this tree is in fruit later in the year in September, it is abundantly red, just offering this redness. Okay, so here is a whole bunch of gifts, and just like me, when I have a healthy heart, and when I say heart, by the way, the word heart is baked into the language. You know, we have in its stages of spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. Like when we say that people have a lot of heart, we're not necessarily talking about like a pathological abundance of tissue, right? Or a broken heart. We're not like, oh, I got to get in there and sew that thing up. We know what it means. It's whereas we have to kind of use our imagination with a lot of other organs. Like you got a lot of gall to say that, you know, this is gallbladder, so on. But with the heart, it's really easy to understand that this is kind of survived in the language. So when I have a healthy heart, and I'm talking about physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, all this, I can radiate my abundance like this hawthorn tree with its red fruit, by the way. It's very tempting and reminiscent of the blood. And therefore, you know, y'all can come and get my abundance. Come and get it. Just like the toroidal field opens up and it peaks. And when it peaks, it comes back in, and we offer ourselves that all of that we, for being in this space. You know, we're taking in everybody else's impressions. And then I also have the boundary. So I say, yeah, come and take my fruit. You could take as much as you want, but don't take advantage of me. Don't take advantage of it. You got to be mindful when you're coming to get this stuff. You got to be careful, because if you don't, I'm going to stab you. That's kind of the archetypical remedy of a healthy heart to me, is that we could share what we're offering, and then we can also protect what we're offering. And the toroidal field, now zooming back out again from, you know, in my view, if you can go to the next slide, please. This is a hawthorn tree from the wintertime. And I took the picture with the expanded lens. Okay, I know that not everybody admits that when they take like a fisheye lens photo, but here I am doing that. But I do want to illustrate that the picture of the hawthorn tree has a very it has a lot of signatures of the circulatory system, where it's craggy and it crosses, and it has a very circulatory like feel. But it also has the toroidal like feel, because the roots are very, very similar root structure to what we see above. So when we picture in our mind, and I even have a slide here, the next one maybe, there's this is the Celtic tree of life, which is often said, like if you're wondering what that is, it's always said that it's an oak tree. Well, a Crataegus or a hawthorn tree to me is like a mini aspiring oak tree. But if you look at those leaves, those don't look like oak leaves. This is the normal stylized tree of life. And so it's a symbol. It's a symbol of this toroidal aspect, this sharing. Here I am in my central pillar, my central axis, my shushumna, the quiet central stillness. Shushumna. Right down the center, and then boom, everything else that dances around, everything that I can offer. And so I see the hawthorn tree really symbolically here in the Celtic tree of life, but also what the Celtic tree of life can also represent is that toroidal healing heart space, the healing heart, the healthy boundary, that when Chance strikes his tuning fork, he could feel 6 feet away. And if you have really, really strong heart field, you could feel it 7, 8 feet away. Or if you have a really good practitioner like Chance, you could feel it for a long ways away, maybe an infinite amount of space away, depending on what you're looking for. And so that's the resonance of our heart space. So hawthorn as a berry is a really great medicine for tending this space, but also as a berry, because it's red, it's really high in bioflavonoids. It is a premier tonic for the heart as a muscle, as a whatever it is. I almost said pump. I know it's not a pump, but the vortexer, the spiraler. How about that? The berry, and then the leaves and the flowers are more for the peripheral capillary beds. So it's the whole picture of circulation. We get a whole group of medicine here. So a lot of times I'll go out in the springtime and I'll take some leaves and flowers, and I'll start tincturing them, and then I'll go in the fall and I'll get some berries and I'll start tincturing them with brandy. By the way, it's really, really nice. Let it sit for 3 or 4 months, and it's a really, really great medicine. It's a good one to smoke. It's a good one to drink as a tea. It's very nutritive, and it's just, I think that this is a great remedy for just about anyone. It doesn't have a favorite type of person to work for. It's just healing for the heart, for just about anyone in the circulatory system. So if anybody has like questions about circulatory system or their heart, I always start with hawthorn as a base, and then I go from there. And then, yeah, the fairy folk, the fae folk, that's another thing that that this plant has a strong relationship with. There's two trees that are like the fairy trees. There's the fairy mother tree, and there's the fairy father tree. The fairy mother tree we covered in Capricorn, and that is elder, which has a strong relationship to Saturn, elder. It's got the berries that hang down, red berries, and it's got this like returning blood kind of signatures to it. I said red berries, blueberries that are just like returning that venous blood. And then there's Hawthorn, which has got these masculine projectiles. This is the father of the fairy tree. And with its redness, it's symbolic of moving away, projecting outwards from the center. So there's a lot of stories and myth about, you're not supposed to bring a hawthorn tree. You're not supposed to cut it down. You're not supposed to bring it inside. It's you're not supposed to play underneath it except on Beltane and stuff like that, because of the myths of the fairies, or let's just say, I know that fairies is like kind of a Disney word now. So let's just say elemental spirits, the etheric elemental spirits.
They call them, the Irish called in the ancient times, the she.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that.
It was spelled Sidhe or something like that, but you know how Gaelic and Irish are. Lots of extra letters in the spelling that are not actually sounded out. But the she were originally the names of the hills or the tumuli, like the burial towers that dotted the landscape. And then eventually the people of the hills, or the people of the burial mounds, the other side, the realm of the dead, they're called the she. So there's something there. Just wanted to give people that
awesome,
vocabulary.
Dude. That's really, really interesting. Just want to say too, I really like Dylan's comment here. Heart is also heard. And then your follow-up comment, the heart is the third ear. That's really interesting. Obviously, you have ear right there in the middle of heart, super receptive. And actually, if you don't mind progressing just one more slide, just an observation. Those thorns are crazy, dude. I never realized that their thorns are that big. That's fascinating. But just the little petals, right? If I'm not mistaken, that's a five-pointed star, right? And so very much related to, you were talking about the Taurus field. I think of Venus and Venus's relationship with 5. When I see the pentacle, I oftentimes think of Venus, given Venus's transit in the heavens over the course of 8 years, this Venus rose or Venus pentagram. And also because of the apple connection too, right? You're going to see 5 seeds in an apple. If you cut it horizontally, right, you're going to see that same 5-pointed star in the apple. The same way you're going to see it if you cut it vertically, you're going to see the toroidal field. So I like all of these different connections with the apple and stuff. That's really cool.
Right. That's a great comment about herd, Dylan. I work with this plant and I recommend it a lot for people who are ready to move beyond their 5 senses. And this is something I teach in herbalism too. We start with our 5 senses, what we could see, what we could smell, taste, hear, and touch, and move into the realm of the proprioception of the heart space and how we can feel what our heart is telling us through those little strings of what we could call heartstrings, the little electromagnetic strings that are radiating out and constantly playing back and forth with everything else that emits one of these things too. It's not just life, by the way. It certainly is all living things, and they're really strong. But there was a Netflix thing that was called like Marie Kondo, and it was all about like tidying up your place and making your house have what sparks joy, right? Joy being living in the heart. And so you pick up an object, and Stephen Buhner, who's also a great herbal author and earth poet, he calls himself, he also talks about this practice where you pick something up and you just tune into your heart space and you say, how does this make me feel? I'm not talking about like this feel, and I'm not talking about smell or any of these senses. I'm just talking about the feeling that I have with this, and really tuning in to the objects that we have in our space as a first way of engaging with the outside world. So we're first doing it in our private area so that we can strengthen and tune those heartstrings, if you will, so that we can hear with our heart. So that's an awesome comment.
Nice. Yeah. The anagram that I pulled out of Hawthorn is who in heart. And Of course, I'm spelling heart Hart, but it definitely it's the Christ. Christ has thorns around the heart,
Yeah, the crown of thorns is said to be Hawthorn
right?
by Christian
Nice.
scholars.
Nice. That's perfect. That's in the answer is within the word. It's like, who in letter N, WHO letter N HART. But in can be on as well as in. But then it's Crataegus. Crataegus is a Sagittarius is an anagram for Sagittarius. And it's also Sagittarius is the pointy one. It's the pointy one. So I thought I'd throw that in the mix.
Here's a Hawthorn story. When I went to Glastonbury, England, one thing that I really remembered resonating with is this myth that they have at the Abbey in Glastonbury. Glastonbury is where they have the Tor as well. And so there's the hill and there's the tower on the hill. And every little place in Glastonbury area has their connection with King Arthur or the Holy Grail. Like even little pubs, like, oh, their Holy Grail is behind the mantle. Like it's just like it's like built into the tourism and the appeal of the town. But in Glastonbury, they have a hawthorn tree that grows in the abbey, and it's no longer there. It died, but it was said that Joseph of Arimathea went to Glastonbury and along with the Holy Grail. And when he got there, he took his staff, which was a hawthorn staff, and put it into the ground. And from that grew this particular type of hawthorn tree that nobody else knows about or has seen since like the 90s when it died or something like that. And this type of hawthorn tree was it bloomed 2 times a year, once for Beltane and once for Christmas. And so that story has always stayed with me. They have like,
they would send a sprig of it to the queen every Christmas, and she would decorate her Christmas dinner table with it.
Yep. Yeah, that story always stuck with me because I was like, okay, wait, Joseph of Arimathea, he was the one that took Christ off of the cross, and they said that hawthorn might be the crown of thorns and all this stuff. And he had his staff, and he goes to what we now call England, like 34 AD. And then, so in order for this story to like kind of make sense, going from where, Israel to what we now call England, we have a lot of fuckery with the historical narrative and the geography, but it doesn't have any deterrence with the gravitas of this tree. Like people honor it because they're not like, it is said that Joseph of Arimathea, they're like, Joseph of Arimathea came here, and that's how we got this tree. By the way, there's fairies up there, and there's all, this is a magical place. And so I always thought that was really interesting that it was just like a matter of fact kind of thing with Joseph of Arimathea. And so since you mentioned Joseph earlier and the other Josephs in the Bible, I thought I'd bring that up and see if you had any thoughts on that as well.
Nice.
I think you summed it up nicely. Also, Crataegus, I would guess, is probably a connection to the strength card in Leo, because Kratos in Greek is strength.
Oh, nice. Right, and if you make your baby in Sag, it'll pop out in Leo, I think. Yeah, I think that's a 9-month span.
Bullseye.
Is that right? Oh, no, that's not right.
You want to do it in Scorpio season.
Yeah, right before Sag.
I've been plotting this.
Yeah, totally. So Kyle, that the weave on Joseph of Arimathea and his whatever later pilgrimages, I think that is also immortalized in William Blake's Dark Satanic Mills. His poem about the Dark Satanic Mills. That is not the title of the poem. Title of the poem is super obscure, but if you just look it up, William Blake's Dark Satanic Mills, he postulates the possibility of Joseph Arimathea walking through some territories of the UK that are not canon to the story, but they are very fascinating. And the other thing about that poem is that it is the alternative national anthem of the UK. It's their secondary or their fallback or their whatever, their rebel low-key shadow national anthem is Blake's poem there.
Oh, that's fascinating, dude. I didn't know that. Just riffing on a few things real quick. The Leo connection here, potential Leo connection here, and the whole myth. I would look it up if our internet was faster, but the whole mythology about removing a thorn from the paw of a lion, right, is a thing. And then we're talking about the line of Judah and Christ's crucifixion, all that kind of stuff. And then also the UK connection with the lion is interesting because in the official UK coat of arms, you see a lion, and then on the other side, you see a unicorn. And I've made a video, and I think I have the receipts for it, that the unicorn was once a mythological creature that designated Cancer. So I think what you're seeing actually is this interplay between Leo, the lion, and then the unicorn being symbolic of Cancer, and the unicorn is always chained too. That's something that you'll notice. And I see it that the unicorn's horn is actually symbolic of the world axis as well.
Okay, hold on.
I think the paw story you're talking about is Androcles or something like that. He is a runaway slave, hides in a cave. There's a wounded lion. He helps the lion get the thorn out of his paw, and then later he's caught and he's thrown to the, in sort of that like classic mythical execution in the arena. The animals are set loose on him, and the same lion is there, and it doesn't eat him because they're friends.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a great story. And his name Andrew will be like manliness or courage.
Yeah, Androcles. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. His name has both courage and claws. Like manliness and claws. It's all in his name.
Well, even core is the same root as core, heart. Heart and courage. That word courage is actually referring to the heart.
Right. So the name is like Braveheart.
Wow. You wanted to go Slick? Because I've got some Hawthorn stuff too. This is, like I said, this is a really expansive tree and plant.
Yes. This is a huge one. I just wanted to just kind of confirm or put a pin in what Mario said about the idea that talking about Cancer and the unicorn, I guess that's Monoceros, right? In the fact that she's often depicted in shackles, those would be manacles, manacles, Monoceros, very similar spelling there. But something that hits for me is I've been weaving on Cancer. Because I discovered Socrates, the painting of Socrates when he's dying, he's reaching for that cup of what is it? It's not a Hawthorn. What is he drinking? Hemlock. Thank you. He's reaching for that cup. He's in the position of Cancer. He's pointing the one finger up. He's giving his assent. He's saying his last words. And it's just fascinating that you're pointing out that it could have been the unicorn because of that pointing. I've been seeing that as like maybe he's pointing at the North Star where the North Star used to be. The fact that you mentioned that there's always shackles. Socrates, in that moment, he's in a prison, and there oftentimes are shackles or monocles depicted on the wall behind him. But that also, to me, is the Lynx constellation. So if you go just over Cancer and pretty much over Cancer and Leo, there's a long constellation called the Lynx constellation. And it's depicted as a lynx animal, but it is the links of the chain of the fact that he's in prison as well in the art. So that's just really fascinating. It's hitting a real note for me that you say that there's a unicorn associated with that, where I have Socrates located.
Yeah, dude, that's great. And I kind of see it too as Leo, the lion, the sun, potentially Cancer, the unicorn. I see some people in the comments making the connection between Capricorn and the unicorn. That's absolutely there too. So I don't deny that as well. And it's interesting that Cancer and Capricorn are polarities of each other. So I see the case, and I even say that in the video, that I could see the case for both, actually. But if it is Cancer, it's the only sign that's ruled by the moon. So you have the only sign that's ruled by the sun next to the only sign that's ruled by the moon. And so to me, it kind of implies some sort of lunar polar sort of thing, you know, this constant struggle, right? And there's this old belief that the sun and moon are constantly battling each other day in, day out, which is why the sun goes away and the moon rises, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I kind of think that there's something to be said about all of that. Perhaps some sort of commentary about, I don't know, a patriarchy versus a matriarchy too, or, you know, masculine, feminine, et cetera. So
I dig that. Yeah, I like that that the moon is Cancer, the sun is Leo. It kind of makes its own pillars, right? Its own tracing board of sorts.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, Dylan brings up the Phoenician word for lion is lis or leeks, which is basically lux, light. Light and lion go together. And if you take the N out of lynx, you get the Phoenician word leeks. Good. So the couple of things I wanted to say about Hawthorn. You brought up the Celtic fairy folklore aspect to it, that it's associated with the other world, and that the She reside within the Hawthorn. One thing that's interesting about the She, speaking of Phoenicians, is that the king of the She was called Finvara or Finbara or Finbar. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in those phonetics. You've got like Ishvara, now it's Finvara. You have bar or bear in there, bar being there's a lot there. We'll just leave it at that. But he's a ruler of the dead, like an Osiris figure. Then there's all kinds of stories that have happened throughout the years about these, you know, it's especially more prominent in like Iceland, I think. But in Ireland, according to the story I found in 1999, work was interrupted on a road being built from Limerick to Galway because one of these fairy trees, aka a hawthorn, was in the path, and they had to reroute the road, and construction was delayed for 10 years. So obviously the fairies had some effect on things, and they've you know, there's lots of stories of ghosts appearing after the felling of these fairy trees. And the 13th century Scottish mystic and poet, Thomas the Rhymer, claimed to have met the fairy queen by a hawthorn from which a cuckoo was calling. And she led him into the underworld for a brief time. And when he came back, he found that he was absent for 7 years. That's a very common theme in the alien abduction mythos and in the fairy tales, the missing time phenomenon. But this is back to the plague concept. You know, I don't think we quite fleshed it out, but plague, we were discussing this last week about how plagues, when mentioned in the ancient writings, plagues might be referring to something more akin to war and strife than infectious communicable diseases, and some kind of redefining of words, which happens a lot around the ideas of public health and communicable diseases. A lot of redefining of words in the cooties time period of the last couple of years. But so plague comes from a Greek root meaning to be struck or to be hit. So like, you know, something that would happen in a fight. That being said, there are allegations, if you will, that the medieval folk asserted that the smell of hawthorn blossom was just like the smell of the plague, the big bad bubonic plague, which that might be a different thing. You know, that's somewhat more recent. When I say plagues might mean war, I'm saying like way far back, like BC, you know, like ancient Greek writers. But and it might not apply in every case, but Hawthorn was supposed to smell like the plague, and botanists of modern times have discovered that the chemical trimethylene present in hawthorn blossom is also formed in decaying animal tissue, which
wow. So
Arabic culture has associated hawthorn with death for a long time already. So this is like an old association. Remember the whole king of the Shi being the ruler of the dead. And so the Arabic cultures, hawthorn has been used for funeral pyres, and that might also be because the hawthorn creates extremely hot fires, but there's this death association even chemically. Very interesting.
Let me interrupt just a second. The other plant that smells very, I would say, animalistic and flesh-like is the elder tree, which is the other polarity. It's the feminine polarity of the elf tree. So both of those trees have that animalistic, it's almost like a repulsive yet it's enticing repulsive kind of smell to it. And it's not, there's elderflower ciders and elderflower cordials, and it's a lovely drink, but the smell of the flower itself does have like a animal decaying flesh kind of smell to it, just like the hawthorn. Really
Okay. So I want to mention that the Pythias, the Sibyls used to sit over the Pythia, and the word Pythia means rot. They would breathe in the fumes of the Pythia and prophesize. And so they would literally harness the scent of rot to give them the power of sight. And I also want to mention that we're talking about these thorns, these barbed annoyances. Like the word plague means to bother or to be bothersome. And it just keeps coming up in my research. I can't count how many examples of Socrates, his nickname is the gadfly of Athens. And so he is labeled as like the nuisance. Gavin Newsom. All things Newsom. Even who's the robot guy? Robert von Neumann. Von Neumann is annoying man. In all of these things, these little call signs are just telling us that these guys all hail to this philosophical. It's a cult at this point, but scientific optimism is what all of this lends to. But the idea of because Socrates was like a plague. The question, the unknowing, doubt becomes a plague. Even having to pay your insurance is a plague. It's a bother. Every month it bothers you. You gotta do this. It's a thing you gotta do. So it's like a thorn in your side. It's bugging you. If it's bugging you, it's wearing on your conscience. All these things are the gadflies of the collective. So I just wanted to just kind of throw all that out, that we're talking about barbed things that are annoying, that plague us. And then I'm going to actually step off the screen. I got to dig up a philological tie-in to plague that I discovered after that conversation we had. It's going to take me a minute to dig it out. I'm going to put it in the Telegram, and I'll be right back.
All right. We can move into our next plant.
Yeah, let's do it. I don't want to take us too off track here before we get into Lion's Tail, but it's kind of syncy.
Go for it, man.
So during our Irish trip, we went to Galway, which you mentioned, regarding the tree and the fairies and things like that, and the roadway and all of that. It's interesting. If you were to Google image, you don't have to, but if you were to Google image Galway symbol, you will see a couple of different things. One, you're going to see lions, as part of kind of like their county or city crest. And then the other thing you're going to see, which I thought was really interesting when we were there, is it's my understanding that there is a symbol that was designed in Galway that kind of got exported around and kind of became a thing. So if you go there, you're going to see it for sale all over the place as jewelry and like shirts and like other kinds of stuff. But the symbol is a heart actually being held by two hands, and there's a crown on top of the heart. So I just thought it was interesting. You mentioned Galway, and then they have the heart symbol, which is like part of their whole entire thing, part of their tourism, and then also you have the lion on kind of their crest there. There you go. Yeah, exactly. So they have like that available as like necklaces. There you go. That's a good example right there too, on top of that shop there. But again, the heart related to Leo the lion, the crown very much is an appropriate symbol to correspond with the lion as well. And then you actually have the lion itself, on that flag there.
I'm interested in the ship symbolism too.
Yeah, right?
Very interesting. Because this is what like the Holy Sailors, Dylan's book that I did the most recently completed audiobook for, is all about the connection between the Phoenicians and the Celts or the Gallic people. Gaul and Kel are the same thing with the C to G interchange.
Yeah.
That that the British Islands were peopled by whoever these seafaring holy sailors that have been styled Phoenician by, the ancients, but that we've lost our keys about who they were and what was going on.
So
that's what Dylan's work has done such an awesome job, being on the track of. So the fact that there's all this sea symbolism or a ship symbolism is very, very interesting. Wonder how far back it goes.
So, that will be Argo in the minor decans of the Zodiac. That'll be Argo, which is just in Cancer before you get into Leo.
Yeah, and this one, it's actually kind of looks like it's missing a prow even.
Oh, good point. It does. And then on the mast of Argo is a compass called Pryxis, or Pryx, Pryx, is tied to the mast, much like is that Ulysses or
Odysseus, Ulysses,
Odysseus tied to the mast. Thank you. So yeah, Argo is in Cancer, and then at the end of just as you go into Virgo, so we've gone all through Leo, and just as you go into Virgo, you get Canis Venatici constellation, which is these two dogs. One of those two dogs has a heart on his back that is looks just like the heart that was held by those hands in one of those logos. And it's a royal heart that indicates the King Charles the First. Ties into the decapitation of King Charles the First. That heart, crowned heart logo that was in some of those visuals.
There's like a trendy little neighborhood tucked away, kind of hidden in the middle of town, but in the woods, in where I live, called Galloway. That's interesting. Galway.
Totally.
They like purposefully keep it from getting overpopulated, and it's like just a nice little secret district. All right, we want to get into Lion's Tail. Looks good. Really looks like some Dr. Seuss shit here. Love it.
Yeah, and I just had wanted to say you guys really helped me connect something with the ear and the heart connection and the hearing, because I've been dealing with an ear issue for like 3 weeks now. And, in German New Medicine, the ear is connected to hearing something you didn't want to hear, which usually is there's an emotional response to that. And so to me, that would make that's a huge connection for me of like, okay, so to heal the ear, you must heal the heart. So that emotional response that hit me that I didn't want to hear, whatever it was, have I then dove into the heart connection of it as deep as I should yet? And I'm getting that I need to work with Hawthorn. So basically,
think about what it would
that's
look
a
like
really good one right there, what you were talking about. So I love those connections you guys made. So thank you.
Look at this signature, 2 ears together. I mean, this is kind of blurry, but if you just mirrored 2 ears together.
Wow. Yep. That's awesome, because to me it further confirms, or it kind of solidifies the German New Medicine standpoint of it too, because if you hear something, you have an emotional response to it, and so there's probably some deeper digging than just like, okay, I heard that made me mad. Well, okay, well, why did it make you mad? What was it? There's probably something way deeper, going on. So just wanted to drop that in before we go into Lion's Tail and
I'd love
share
to know
gratitude for you guys.
I'd love to know
bringing them up.
someday, like maybe just between us, when you get to the bottom of it, I would be curious, because that's, a more murky area of my comprehension of the biofield and the way that our bodies talk to us. Because and I had a client not that long ago who was experiencing a chronic ear infection, and I don't know if we quite figured it out. But I know we did a lot of good stuff in that session, and we may probably move the needle, but I don't know if we figured it out. So that's one, couple of more obscure areas of the biofield: ears, elbows, learning a lot about them lately as, situations come up, but they're more rarely addressed. So I haven't got as much experience on certain body parts.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share, because I feel like I know, like I actually know the thing that it was. It has been a dark night of the soul. I've learned so much. I really have. I've learned so much about the ear, how it works, myself, remedies. And so now bringing all this stuff into it is going to help even further. So, just like Chiron, the wounded healer, it's like I had to go through all this, and we all have to go through these shadowy parts so that we can, help somebody else on the next go round or whatever, So I just keep reminding myself of that the whole time, where it's been frustrating or stressful or painful or whatever. It's like, it's got to happen. It's happening for a reason. So yeah, as usual, lots of healing coming through this stream. So hopefully y'all are feeling it too. So.
And even heal and hear, if you do the LR interchange, which is allowable philologically, same word.
Yeah, totally.
Because what causes us to heal is when we hear the message that our body and our soul has been trying to tell us through the injury or the illness.
Right.
But speaking of philological swaps, Gabe, your share I saw it in the Telegram group. Before we move past this, like, tell us about this plague sync you found, because I think that you just put a huge nail in that coffin of believing in plagues.
Well, can you pull up the image? Apparently, many of the Abraham Lincoln's peers, like the presidents before him and those who knew of him, referred to him as a blackguard. And a blackguard is a person who uses foul language. Okay, yes, is a person who uses foul language. And this is to say, I think they're saying, like, he was using this good old boy approach to his campaign, such that he was willing to publicly use profanity. And they're like, oh, he's cheating. He's trying to look like a good old boy because he's like saying these down home phrases and sayings. And he's a wrestler. He's got like a all winning wrestling record. So he's got this real down home boy style of campaigning. And so they literally said he's breaking all the rules. He's a blackguard. And blackguard, it means a person who uses foul language. But here,
also can be like a bully or a bad guy, just in general.
Yes, which is true, because
someone who like uses force or manipulation, does some kind of like, something that circumvents someone else's free will by force or violence.
Which is kind of true, because he was a wrestler, and in his style of wrestling was actually kind of a catch-as-catch-can style fighting. Is kind of it's a blackguard's style of fighting. But it turns out today a blague is a joke or a prank. And when it appears in France in the 18th century, it is the meaning of a lie. And so what gets me here is that a plague is so philologically close to a blague, which is a lie,
P
But
and
hold
B
on.
switch between dialects and languages. There's lots of times if you hear someone talking in Greek, for example, you can't even tell if it was a P or a B.
Yes.
There's often no distinction for some people.
Yes. Now, hang in here with me with the reasoning. If Socrates was a plague or a bother or a nuisance to the populace, also Socrates was the proliferator of the noble lie. He was the one that gave all of the city planners, all of the world leaders, this great idea that the only way to control people is to have the noble lie. And so the argument still stands that Socrates, the pain in everybody's ass for all eternity, is standing in a position as being responsible for what was such a bother for everybody, what was such a pestilence on the populace. It is so fascinating that even the noble lie is still to this day the pain in our ass that plagues us.
So plagues are a joke or a prank. That's the takeaway, everybody. just kidding. What you do to yourself because of your fear of this prank is your own problem. Karma's not on us. That's a deep.
Oh, I got one more. I'm gonna go.
Okay.
I'm gonna send another one. I'll be right. Oh no, wait. I might have already sent it to you. I'll just sit back.
Let's get Michelle up in here for this lion's tail. We've been teasing it for too long. You don't want to tease a lion's tail. It might, I mess with my cat's tails. Yeah, sometimes you get swatted.
All right, so this plant is so cool. And I will say that I just started learning about it last year because I was gifted a start of this plant by one of my dear gardening friends. And he had come across it and he grew it like a handful of years ago. And he was just like, you have to grow this because it is magnificent and it's awesome. He said, mine is like 8 feet tall and it has these beautiful orange flowers that come out and it's lion's tail. Leonaris is the Latin name for this plant. It's also known as wild daga. And so this name comes from actually Africa because this plant is actually native to Africa. And the word daga is marijuana in African. And so this is sometimes used as a substitute for cannabis. Not a substitute, but basically it does have hypnotic psychoactive properties to it, like on a lighter scale. When it's smoked, you can smoke the leaf. You can also smoke the flower itself, but it's used ceremonially, to go into trance states along with music, drumming, fire circles, things like that in the native land of Africa. And it looks like it would be an African plant. It has like a very tropical, warm sort of climate look to it. And I will say that mine did not come back this year. So in a colder region, it will be an annual, and in a warmer region, it will come back each year. So this, like Motherwort, is also in the mint family, which we've talked about this before, but for people who don't know, can always be indicated by the stem. The stem of all the mint family plants are square. This is a really hardy plant. It has that same sort of spiky property as Motherwort does, actually. So I've gotten a lot of experience learning about this plant just from growing it and sitting with it. And that's where I've gained most of my knowledge from it. I can't say I've smoked it myself. I actually regret not harvesting the leaves sooner. It just got away from me last year. So, but just seeing this, it's just to me, it's so magnificent. Leo signatures everywhere. It's really cool. I do know from research that they will use it as a remedy for snake bites and scorpion stings. And so that doctrine I was just talking about with the spiky seed pods again kind of comes through. It will sting you. So it's also the antidote for stings. Also learning that it promotes circulation of chi, which again, just looking at this, there is so much vibration coming from this plant. And when you're in its presence too, it's very striking. It makes you stop and look at it and want to understand what's even going on here. Because as you said, Chance, looks like Dr. Seuss. It really does. It's almost cartoony in its way and how it looks and how it grows. Because the other thing I noticed about its growth pattern, it reaches for the sun. So if it's in an area where there's not a lot of sun, it will contort itself and twist and turn and bend to get more sun. And that's what I noticed with ours, that it really was really leaning in to get more sun, more sun. So there's another Leo quality there as well. This is a hummingbird attractor. They love the flowers. Hummingbirds just love the long flowers, of course, because they can get their beaks down in there. So that's another really cool thing about it too. If you're wanting to attract hummers to your area, this would be a really good plant to grow. And it does grow very tall. Ours got to probably about 7 to 8 feet tall. And it's pretty hardy when it's in the summertime. So it's
the
a really nice
two-leaf signature reminds me of like hummingbird wings, honestly.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of the leaf, if you go to the next slide, this is one of the younger leaves here on the right that I took a photo of. And you can see that heart shape. And then as it grows and it gets taller, then they'll straighten out a little bit and they get a little longer. There's also a couple varieties of this plant too. So that should be taken note of. And then I had to showcase these, the flower pods and where they come from. And that spiky nature that we were talking about, that the antidote for a sting or a bite is kind of right there in this plant. And it has that same pattern like Kyle was showing us with the heartbeat, with the Motherwort. It's just not as many as Motherwort has, but it's still very much like that. When you look at the stem and you look at the plant as a whole, it has that same pattern. So this is definitely a heart remedy as well. You can use it for just calming. You can also use it for headaches and palpitations and inflammation and things like that. So I highly recommend people do their own research on this one, because as I said, I'm still learning this one, but I had to bring it into the fold just because you can't deny that this is all Leo all day.
Really reminds me of the Nemean lion from Hercules's 12 labors, because its golden fur was impervious to any weapon or attack, but its claws could get through any armor. That's what it makes me think of. It's got these pokey, it's because a lot of these plants are about the protection, but they've got claws too.
Right.
And some versions of the strength card, I made a post about this on Instagram. Some versions of the strength card actually depict Hercules fighting the Nemean lion with his club there, which I think is interesting. It makes a lot of sense.
And even the leaves have jagged teeth, or sharp claws. It's all spiky and jagged. Also, the fact that you mentioned the mention of Africa made me think right away of Augustus, Saint Augustus. He was African. August, having to do with the lion. And even the word Africa actually means sunny. It's the same word as apricot, basically. So there again, we have the sunniness of the height of the summer.
Kind of a cool thing. It's random, but your gravy bear in the background, Chance, is reminding me that I do have a strength card where instead of a lion and a woman, it's a woman and a bear. And so that's from the deck called the Pagan Otherworlds. And I think that makes perfect sense. It makes me think of Ursa Major being a mother bear. I think the symbolism is very, very nice to kind of have that substitute. So just wanted to point that out because I think it's beautifully done, and symbolically, it just makes my mind think about all this northern stuff.
Cool, man. I love this gravy bear. It's a good prop for behind, a podcaster. I got it last year at the place where Kyle and I met, actually, the Beartaria National Festival. And I am really stoked that Labor Day weekend is so soon, and we will be gathering there again with a bunch of people that like homesteading, don't believe they're on a globe, and enjoy an extremely offensive, hilarious comedian. It's a weird, eclectic bunch, and it's going to be a lot bigger this year. So would love to see more people that tune into these streams who I can meet in person. Kyle, are you going to be there?
Planning on it.
All right. Well, if you got tickets yet, because I hear that they might run out.
I should have one, I think.
Okay, great. Well, looking forward to it, buddy. That's going to be fun. Every time we get to hang out in the real space, it's just better than the last. It's going to be awesome. I think Gabriel should go personally. It's not that far for you. Get on down here. I'm lucky. It's an hour from where I live. Just lucked out, and I happen to be in the nexus point where everyone wants to move now because it's got a lot of freedom and you can grow stuff and low cost of living, cheap land. It's awesome here. Don't
It's
tell
almost
everybody.
it's almost like the name protected it all this time. People had like a subconscious negative association, and that was its own insulation.
Yeah, that's a good point, guys.
I have a question for Gabe. Where is your Leo on the territories map?
So Leo is, let's see, so Cancer pretty much takes Indiana and Michigan, and then right about where Indiana blends into Ohio is the dividing line from Cancer to Leo. And so almost all of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Maine is almost all Leo. And then of course, as you drop down into Virginia, you're in Virgo. So that whole northeast corner of the U.S. is main strength. You know, it's Wall Street. It's where Wall Street's at.
What's tall in the middle and round on both sides? Ohio.
Ah, nice.
It's high in the middle, round on the sides. I
Well
should have said
done.
high instead of tall. Sorry, I tried to make it trickier. Well, guys, you want to go around the horn and give some closing thoughts? I think that we've done a great job tonight. It's 3 hours, 14 minutes in, the pie moment. I've really, really enjoyed this. Jennifer says Missouri is mo than she expected. It's great here. Yeah, we'll start with Michelle and Mario, you guys. Michelle first. And yeah, make sure you let everybody know what is good, what's new over on your channel and your offerings too. Don't forget to plug all the awesome stuff you're doing.
Yeah, thanks, man. And thank you guys, as always. Thanks, everyone who's tuning in. This keeps me motivated in so many ways, so always grateful. And thank you for the extra healing that came through for me this evening. michelleshealinghome.com. If you want to get a hold of me, sign up for my newsletter. There's a newsletter coming out on the 30th because we have 2 full moons, which is really exciting. We have a blue moon, which is coming up on the 30th. So there'll be a new offering. Let's see. Last night we had Ingrid Kincaid on the Healing Home. So if you guys want to learn more about runes and her approach, and she has an unconventional approach, which I really appreciate, really love her. We've been able to spend time with her in person as well. So she is a force, and it's awesome. So we had a good conversation. Let's see what else. And I think that's kind of it right now. Patreon.com/thehealinghome. If you want to support me in that way, that's awesome. Very grateful for all the patrons that are coming through right now. So thank you as always.
Yes, this was a good time. I was looking forward to it. If people are interested in what I'm up to, you can check out symbolicstudies.com. Check out my channel, Symbolic Studies. I do tarot readings, I do design work, I do consultations and study sessions, things like that. So if I can help you on your symbolic journey, just reach out. And I'm looking forward to the next one as well. So I really do get a lot out of this, and I love this crew. So you guys are all very much appreciated. And Chance, yeah, thank you for being vulnerable earlier and kind of sharing your guys' recent experience and stuff. My heart goes out to both of you. So just much love all around. Lots of gratitude, guys, and including everyone in the chat too. Thank you guys for hanging out.
I always find it remarkable that, 99% of streams, we don't have to ban anybody. We don't have anybody that we got to say, hey, cool it. This community is top notch. Totally the tops. So thank you everybody in the chats, from Symbolic Studies chat, Michelle's Healing Home chat, and of course the InnerVerse channel chat. Y'all are just excellent folks. Thank you for being here. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Kyle, what about you, buddy? What's to plug?
Man, this whole show is a medicine for me too. I get a lot of medicine out of hanging out with y'all. Really appreciate you, Michelle, Mario, and Gabe and Chance. And as you were mentioning earlier, just a second ago, when you're working on yourself, your inner world, your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. Your chat is a reflection of yourself. So I'll give you a lot of credit for that, Chance, for doing your inner work. And when I get to be done with this, I mean, it's like, I'm proud to be on here, but then it's also very humbling for me because I learn lots of stuff and it's good medicine for me. I take that medicine back with me and I make it. So that's what I do. I make medicine, use InnerVerse code. I also got a YouTube channel that I'm trying to kick off more information on. I'm starting this series called World Tree, in which I'm exploring the symbolic axis mundi through the lens of a tree, through the backdrop of the Zodiac sign, if you will. So we're looking at the central pole, and as the Zodiac kind of spins around it, it gives it a little bit of setting for this world tree and all how it's been fractalized by a certain culture and revered as maybe a central place of gathering, and all of that goes in with the world tree. The first episode I did was bay leaf. And so that was really fun because I got to go to Greece in my video and talk about Apollo. And I was thinking about bringing bay leaf tonight to talk about it because we just, y'all just did the previous episode on the oracles and whatnot. And I did this big video on bay leaf, and I'm like fresh on bay leaf. I switched out bay leaf for Angelica because that's really important to me. And I also thought maybe I'll cover bay leaf for Ophiuchus because it is something that an officer is always adorned with, is the laurels. And so I had an instinct about doing bay leaf for Ophiuchus. It made a lot of sense here too. But if you're interested in learning more about bay leaf and about world trees and in general, I'll be posting one of those about once a month. I got Herb of the Week. I do a Herb of the Week podcast and doing a little bit more than an hour or 75 minutes sometimes on a particular herb. This week's herb is Angelica, where I do a really deep dive and talk about the medicine and the myth and the lore and all the things that you hear here tonight. And of course, the medicine I make. And it's really fun. So thanks, y'all. It's always a pleasure. And congratulations, Chance, on the big 100th episode. It's awesome, man. I love this show.
Man, yeah, ditto. I'm super stoked on number 100. This is cool. I don't have much going on. I just, coming off of that hiatus, barely, I actually probably am going to be.
Don't lie, dude. You have a lot going on up here. I get the voice messages. I'm the sounding board. I know there's a lot going on.
There's always a lot going on. It's true. But the Slick Dissident channel has been is still kind of just hanging in the backdrop. I actually I'm about to get some dental work done in the next month, so no promises on the Slick Dissident shared learning experience going forward. I did want to share a couple, one hanging chad and one story I forgot to share. Hanging chad was the hanging chad is I found out this Latin terminology, sic, S-I-C. And it's the kind of thing that I'm going to try to convey concisely, but I recommend people look into it on your own and check multiple explanations or definitions. I have one here at hand. But the word SIC is a legal term that they use. And when you see it written down, it is telling you that whatever is quoted or conveyed to you probably contains an error, but the error is acknowledged and intentional. So don't think that this is a typo. This was done on purpose. So it absolves the messenger of any misunderstandings. Now, again, I want people to read these definitions from multiple places and keep your mind very open to what's slipping under the radar or what might go through the cracks. I'm just going to read this quick definition from one of my favorite books, Amo, Amas, Amat, and More. This is a book on Latin phrases, how to use Latin to your own advantage and to the astonishment of others. So the word sick translates to thus, Thus, which is Seth in reverse, Suth, Suth, right? Sooth, the soothsayer. Might be wise to read between these lines. This common word is used by writers and editors to indicate an apparent misspelling or a doubtful word or phrase in a source being quoted. This dissecant is useless. The meeting was the most fortuitous I've ever attended. Insertion of sick in these examples above, the quoter of the misspelling the word dissecant is misusing the word fortuitous and lays the blame, if blame it is, on the source quoted. Very clunky definition. But if you read other definitions, they will also tell you that misinterpretations and unorthodox, non-standard interpretations are to be included. So it's telling you basically that there is a cipher not disclosed in the reading. And
Is it also telling us that whenever you go to the doctor and they tell you you're sick, you are accepting a misquoting or misunderstanding?
It's so profound what it means, man. It's so profound. And it's the kind of thing that you get the impression when you start looking into it that it's like, if any word has SIC or CIS in the word, that's your disclosure. It's like, if you can find this anywhere on the page, that it's telling you that there are pages within the pages, so to say. So I found that quite fascinating, that the whole world agreed to be sick during a plague, or was it a plague? Was it a barrage of lies? You know, was it a pestilence of Socratean question asking that just was a barrage of doubt? That's what I think it might mean. And then the last little detail, the last thing I wanted to share with you, because you were telling me about the doppelganger thing. It's so neat because it was just almost on the same week. I've been fascinated with the fortune card. I mean, just fascinated. I just had my birthday, so my numerology, I'm 4 + 6 = 10. So that fortune card has been like, hitting me hard for months and months now. But it was just last week that it occurred to me, Chance. Fortune has a synonym. Chance. Your name is a synonym for the fortune card, buddy. And that's a beautiful
French,
piece.
you say good luck, you say bonne chance.
That's just beautiful. That's so cool. And so there's a part of me that is like, am I channeling my inner Chance? Is that why it's hit me so hard? So yeah, it's kind of starting to make some sense now. Starting to make sense.
Beautiful. That's an interesting thing to take away. The sick, the echoes of what it really means when we say sick. There's probably a lot more there. So to give my plugs, just hit up InnerVersePodcast.com or the show notes of any episode to see some ways you can support me. There's lots of ways. One of my favorite ways is that through Tippecanoe Herbs with the InnerVerse coupon code, you get a discount. And Kyle generously not only gives you a discount, but gives me a kickback. So really appreciate that. And if you want to get a tuning with me, we're about a month, 5 weeks maybe out in terms of booking availability. So if it's something you want to get done sooner than later, the sooner that you hit me up, chance@innerversepodcast.com, the sooner we can get you on the calendar. And, you know, if you came in late, go back to the beginning. There's a really remarkable story from a recent tuning client. And I got a whole, there's a cat causing mischief, but I got a whole journal of client reports and stories. And like, that one was a extremely remarkable one and profound for the Leo conversation, but I could I could do a whole episode sometime just on trip reports from tunings and some of because just that alone I think would be healing for people to see how comprehending the way that patterns in your life are emerging from beliefs to the degree of like really strong outer world experiences that seem to be outside of your control, and that you really have more free will about it once you get behind the wall of the expectation or the belief. Anyway, I'd love to do more tunings for people. It's a very, very awesome modality. But other than that, it's been quite a good journey tonight, lady and gentlemen. Thank you so much for everyone who's here, and we'll wrap it up for now. See you next time. Much love to you all.
You know what else? I just got to say one more thing. It's my time. It's Leo time. Okay? Give me my fucking time. Especially after the last 3.5 years. Us Leos got fucking rammed. And we fucking are still here. And we're still fucking cool as fuck. And those Leo risings, I'm not forgetting about you motherfuckers. Let us have our moment here. Okay?